All right, if everybody's ready, we'll first start with a pledge of allegiance and our invocation. Trustee Freeman will lead us in that.
Excuse me. Almighty and merciful God, we ask your guidance and blessings upon this board, students, parents, patrons, teachers, and administrators as we are assembled here this evening in the common pursuit of this great nation's wealth, our children. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honored Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this regular meeting of the Northside Board of Trustees. Before we officially call the meeting to order, the board would like to take just a moment to briefly review some of the rules for conducting our meeting. The order of business for that meeting is set out on the agenda. One item that you may notice on the agenda is the consent agenda. This item includes items that are considered routine and or of a recurring nature. All the items listed under the consent agenda will be acted upon in one motion. If there is any consent agenda item which someone would like to address, you could have signed up to speak to that, and we'll pull it from the consent motion and discuss it separately. The purpose of our meeting is to conduct board business, and for that reason, it is held in public. It is not a public forum. However, we do provide the opportunity for audience participation. If there's anyone here who would like to address the board during an agenda item or during our Citizens Be Heard portion of the agenda, we ask that you please register on the sign-up sheet that was located at the front entrance to this room. And this is so we don't overlook anyone who would like to speak to the board. When we get to that part, we review the rules for addressing the board later in the meeting. Okay, let me just see, is there anybody else that wanted that opportunity to sign up on those sheets? Okay, we'll go ahead and close them out then. All right, we'll go ahead and officially call the meeting to order now. All right, so we're going to start out first with our public hearing and turn that over to Dr. Kraft.
Yes, sir, Mr. President, members of the board. We are here this evening in large part to take a look at the fiscal year 24 or the 2023-2024 proposed budget. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Dr. Barajas and Tiffany Contreras. And then following so, we'd ask that the board consider opening for a public hearing.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kraft. Okay, we're at the point now where we will, during the hearing, discuss the proposed budget that the board will consider for adoption later, as well as the tax rate. The hearing is an opportunity for the public to come in and comment on the budget and proposed tax rates. But before that, we'll go through the presentation to show the community and certainly the board the proposed budget that you'll be considering for adoption later. So we'll start with the general fund budget, which is, of course, the largest budget the board will consider for adoption tonight. We always have to base the budget on assumptions. Here are the assumptions that we built the budget around. Taxable value for budgeting purposes is estimated to only be 5.36% higher than in previous years. In previous years, that number was double digits. The reason why it's not double digits is because we have predicated the budget on the $100,000 homestead exemption passing in November, which is why you're seeing a lower property increase than from previous years. Average daily attendance, we are basing it on where we ended last year, about 94,200. Again, we will be monitoring that from day one to see whether or not we are hitting those targets as we go throughout the first 6 weeks, second 6 weeks, so on and so forth, and make adjustments as necessary. Federal revenue, we're assuming that it's going to be consistent with previous years, and I'm not referring to ESSER dollars. This is just general fund, recognized federal revenue within the general fund. One thing that we've talked about is if you look at the shift between local, state, and federal. So for the longest time, this district has essentially been 2/3 money coming from local taxpayers, about 1/3 coming from the state, with 2 to 3% coming from the feds. But because of tax rate compression since House Bill 3 in 2019, that has been shifting. So in 2022-23, the budget year that we're ending, mercifully in a few days. We were at almost 70% local coming from, almost 70% of our general fund revenue coming from local. If you jump to 23, 24, it's down to 57% because, again, of compression. When compression happens on the M&O tax rate, you have to remember it's revenue neutral. All it means is that the mixture of money coming from the state or from local taxpayers is just shifted, and that's going to happen as we continue to have compression over the next few years. Federal, again, as I mentioned before, we're expecting it to be about the same. So, if you can see that, this is the general fund budget presented in the format that the board has seen for a number of years. Total revenues are expected to be just under $1 billion, $998 million. Expenditures are just over $1 billion at $1,027 million, which gets us to a deficit, proposed deficit from the adopted budget of $29.0 million. Contrast that with last year where we were in the high 60s. So we've been able to go in and hone our estimates. Again, we are hoping that the 94,200 compared to the 93 certainly is bringing in more money. But again, we will be testing that assumption from day one to see whether or not we are hitting those targets for average daily attendance. The other budget the board will consider is the child nutrition budget. Biggest thing, I guess, is that the number of CEP campuses, or Community Eligibility Provision campuses, is going from 62 to 76. As we talked before in different budget workshops, that essentially means all the kids there will eat for free. For those kids that are going to be paying full price, there is no increase in meal prices for next year. And there hasn't been for 7 years. There's the general fund, the child nutrition fund budget displayed in the same format. It's not as voluminous because there's not as many things that it accounts for other than essentially food service related expenditures and some maintenance and operations. We're expecting an increase to their fund balance of about $1 million. Moving on to the last budget the board will consider for adoption is the debt service budget. That is the budget that, or the fund that accounts for all the money we collect to pay back all the previous year's bonded debt. We are estimating that we will collect 100% of all the budgeted INS taxes, as we have over the last couple of years. Principal payments are just under $100 million at 90. We are planning, and the board will consider later, a defeasance resolution, which simply means that we are paying off debt a lot faster, of about $79.7 million, interest payments of $84 million. Since 2016-17, with the $79.7 million proposed defeasance, the district would have paid off almost $300 million of debt, again, which is paying that debt faster. We normally look for debt that it has a higher interest rate to pay that down, the same way that we all pay down higher interest credit cards, pay it off faster, the citizens don't have to pay as much interest. And again, the same format for the debt service fund budget with local and state. One thing to note here is you would ask, why are we getting state assistance to pay back our bonded debt? That's because a few years ago, if you remember, when the homestead exemption went from 25 to 40, and now it's going from 40 to 100. The debt that we sold at the time was predicated on property values being at a certain level, but when the legislature comes in and increases the homestead exemption, they hold harmless the debt that was already issued up to a certain date. So that $24.1 million is the state's way of saying, okay, the debt that you sold back when the homestead exemption was at 25, and then when it was at 40, we are going to hold you harmless so you don't have to go and tax your citizens anymore because we are increasing the homestead exemption, which lowers your property values. So last year, I think we budgeted about $3 million in what's called Asahi, additional state aid for homestead exemption. And as you can see, now it's all the way up to 24 because built into these numbers is the fact that everybody's assuming that the 100,000 homestead exemption is going to pass in November. Taxable values. We've received all of our taxable values as per appraisal districts have to send them to school districts by roughly July 25th. You see Bexar County, it's only about a 3.59% growth over last year, again, because What's built into those numbers is the $100,000 homestead exemption as compared to last year, it was at the $40,000 level. Same thing for Medina County, although even with the $100,000 homestead exemption, Medina still had double-digit growth. And Bandera, there was actually a value reduction. If you take into account the fact that Medina and Bandera County combined represent less than 0.5% of all of our value, even if both of those counties were double digits, it really doesn't move the needle very much since Bexar County represents the lion's share of our taxable value. As I said earlier, our current estimated taxable values, which are not necessarily the same as the certified values we receive, because when we receive certified values in the month of July, there is still a lot of properties that are under review. And when they come on, when taxpayers are protesting their values and they don't think that they should be that high, with the numbers we get in July, still have several billions of dollars that are still under protest. And throughout the months of August, September, October, November, things are coming off of the protested roll onto what we can tax on, but it doesn't come on dollar for dollar. So you're looking at a different number. And if you rely on what the certified value numbers that you receive in July, you're probably going to be overestimating the local taxes you receive, because we know that a lot of protests are successful. Probably some people in this room or on this dais protested their values, and you find out that they did lower your value. So that's why we build a budget around a more conservative number, because we have no idea what's going to happen to values that are under protest and when they're going to come off the rolls. That rolling onto the taxable rolls is probably going to be at a lower value. But we're talking, you know, tens and tens of billions of dollars. So it could be the fact that we have to adjust the value that we use for taxable value purposes, for budgeting purposes, could be just $1 billion off from what we receive from certified. So, you know, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, you know, all of a sudden it starts to add up. But we have to be very cautious about how we're structuring the budget so we don't overestimate local taxes, because again, we cannot rely on those taxes to come in if we are a bit liberal with our assumptions regarding where our taxable values are going to be. So we get down to the other agenda item that the board is going to consider.
Before you go further, while you were on the exemption, the homestead exemption, so the taxable value, the 10% cap, is that figured before the homestead exemption, or do you take the homestead exemption, drop your value, and then they look at the 10%? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know?
Yes. Well, the superintendent told me there was going to be no questions, so I'm not.
I'm
I'm just kidding. Yeah. Yes. Essentially, when you get to the value that you're going to be taxed on, it's limited to that 10% increase. So when you get your statement, usually in April of every year, you're going to see this value that is assigned. In other words, think of it as the market value. The market value has nothing taken off of it, right? That's for the people who are thinking, I'm going to sell my home. That's the number you're looking at. What's the market value of my home? Then you get to the A. It's our friend Matt, M-A-T. Then you get to the A, the appraised value. Okay, the appraised value is going to be that 10% cap from one to the other. Okay, then after you take the appraised value, then you're going to look at, then the exemptions are going to come off of that to get to the T, the taxable value. So if your appraised value is more than 10%, then it's limited only to that 10%, and then from there, the exemptions are taken from there. So just think of MAT, that's where it kind of gets to, so.
Thank you.
Trying to think where I was. Okay. Oh, the proposed tax rates. Okay. So, because the legislature was meeting this year, we had to sit on our hands a lot regarding what our M&O rate was going to be, because during the session, well, actually, it was into the one of the special sessions when normally, depending on your property value increases vis-a-vis what the state's value increases are going to be, that's going to push your M&O rate down. But because there was an additional 10.7 cents, right, Jake? 10.7 cents on top of where our MCR was going to be, we had to figure out, we didn't know what our MCR was going to be, so we kind of had to play around with some numbers. You're building a budget kind of in the dark because you have no idea what your maximum compressed tax rate is going to be. So after all the dust settled, we finally were able to, at the end of July, as a matter of fact, we're able to look at where our tax rates are going to be for this year that we're asking the board to consider for adoption. So for 23-24, our maximum compressed tax rate, which is called the MCR as a result of House Bill 3 in 2019, is 0.6262. Compare that to the MCR from the previous year, which was 8046. That's almost an 18-cent decrease because of compression. Now, after that, that takes into account the also 10-cent decrease. But to the 6262, which is our MCR, maximum compressed tax rate, we get to add those 5 golden pennies that we've talked about. So the proposed tax rate for next year, M&O, is 6762, with a proposed INS rate of 0.3355, which is exactly the same as it's been for over a decade, to get to a total proposed tax rate of 1.0117, which both the general fund and the debt service fund are built on for those 2 tax rates. And just a chart representing where our tax rates have been over the last couple of years, and you can see at the bottom, M&O rate's been the same all across, and then you can see that compression as the bars are getting smaller because of House Bill 3 and the compression. We are not at the floor. There is a floor that the state sets where no district can be below that MCR, but we are almost there. We are just a thin veneer on top of that, because I think it's 0.61 something, and we're at 6262. So we're almost at the floor. If we had gone any lower, we would have been, we couldn't have gone any lower because of issues within the state of not being any more than 90% away from somebody who was at the ceiling of the MCR. But pretty much last year we were at the floor. This year we're almost at the floor. And that will probably continue to happen unless there's some kind of legislative action to change that. And if we continue to have value increases, even with a 100,000 exemption, we may see double digits next year. We probably will be at the floor for the next number of years. So, but of course, the legislature is slated to meet sometime in the fall, which may change the rules of the game. So we'll see. And with that, that is the budget, proposed budget for 23-24.
All right, Trustee Lopez?
Thank you, Mr. President. Renee, good job. Thank you very much for the presentation. I did have a question on slide 7, having to do with the number of campuses that were the CEP campuses. It went from 62 to 76. Do we have those campuses? Do we have that in do we know which campuses those were?
We do know which ones they are, yeah.
Okay. Is there any way you could provide that information?
We can
to us later
send that
on
in
if
this
they
week's
were-
Friday letter.
Okay, yeah. Okay. One more question. Sorry, let me find it real quick. If you can help us understand the golden penny, if you can just briefly identify that, kind of help those that may not understand or new to the board that understand what a golden penny is, and help us understand how that fits into our budgeting.
Okay.
So that would be on
Yeah.
slide.
Well, there's actually really, I thought of.
I think it was 15, yeah.
Well, one of our consultants that we use has a very good way of showing this, but consider all the pennies up till the 6262, which is our MCR. So just imagine a stack of 62 pennies on your kitchen table. Those are your tier 1 pennies, right? That's what you can levy on your taxpayers. And then you get to add up to 5 golden pennies on top of those. The board has to adopt them, of course. That's why we're at the 6762. There are 8 golden pennies and 9 copper pennies, which makes up the 17 additional pennies on top of the MCR that districts have access to. But you only have access to 5 of the golden pennies by adopting a tax rate, MCR plus 5. All the other pennies, you actually have to go and ask your taxpayers for permission to add those pennies. That's used to be called a TRE. I just saw something today where it's called now a voter-approved tax ratification election, VATRE. So if you remember when we talked about excess entitlement, that we have been identified as an excess entitlement district, which means we're going to have too much revenue, we're going to have to send it back to the state. We had a presentation back at the end of July. I explained to the board that don't worry, we're not going to have any excess entitlement, because the only way you have excess entitlement is when you get to your copper pennies. Well, we can't get to the copper pennies because we have to first ask the voters for 3 golden pennies to get to that now 9th copper penny. The TA doesn't care about that. They say, nope, still go through the motions as if you're going to have a TRE. They don't know if we're going to have a TRE. They could find out, but they don't. Just go ahead and go through the motions. We got you in case you do have excess entitlement. So the 5 golden pennies, every district gets to have them, by and large. I don't know of any district that is precluded from getting those 5 golden pennies. There's no what used to be called recapture on those golden pennies, which means that if we were to, for instance, go out and ask voters, can we get the 3 additional golden pennies? And we did. And we have all the 8 golden pennies. And then we became a district that was collecting a lot of money, and the state says, oh, you have to send that money back. Oh, no, you don't, because you're collecting that on the golden pennies. Golden pennies are golden because, again, you can collect as much money as you can on those pennies without having to send it back to the state. But as soon as you get into the copper penny range, all the way to the 9th, 10th, 11th penny, those are not equalized at the same level as a golden penny, and you have to pay recapture on those. So a district that is considering asking the voters for all those additional pennies above the 5 golden has to really figure, when are we going to get into a situation where we're going to be, our property value is going to be so high in relation to the number of students we have? Because if you have a high property value but a low enrollment, low ADA, that is the recipe for when you have excess entitlement, is what they call it now. And well, the golden pennies, you are now sending money back to the state. So you could tell, well, for every golden penny that we tax on, we have to send 30 cents back to the state. Those are the discussions that a district would have to have with its constituents to say whether or not 70 cents on the dollar is worth it for us to have those dollars to do whatever we want to do in the district. So we're not there. We are just doing the 5 golden pennies. Remember, it used to only be 4 until a couple of years ago, last year, year before, when they allowed us access to 1 more golden penny through legislative action. So we have access to 5. And we'll continue to have access to 5 until legislative action changes that to a 6th golden penny or something like that. So, but we'll see.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Trustee Freeman?
This is just a comment, Dr. Barajas. I think sometimes I'm going to have to sit with you and help me develop my elevator speech for when my neighbor says, you know, my taxable values, look how much my values have gone up, and you're getting all of this money. And we keep saying that we didn't. We have no new money. And
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a taxing entity. We don't control appraised values, and the fact of the matter is, even aside from the $100,000 homestead exemption that we fully anticipate will pass come this November, appraised values are continuously increasing. In fact, Dr. Bras, I don't know what was the total Bexar County increase to appraised values minus the $100,000 homestead exemption. Do you recall? I think it was double digits, if I'm not mistaken.
I think before, because Bexar County sent us 2 values. One was with the 40,000 exemption. The other one was with 100. I think with the 40,000 exemption, I think we were in the double digits, if memory serves. 11
or 12%. So to your point, Ms. Freeman, that's exactly right. There could likely be increases in the overall taxes paid across all taxing entities, even with the homestead exemption increase as a result of appraised values.
I think the 2 important words Dr. Barajas uses is revenue neutral. It's just hard to explain.
Yes, it is.
Where it does impact us, it would have impacted us, is had the state not gone in and said, okay, any debt that your voters have approved, for instance, the 2022 bond issue, any debt that the voters have approved, you haven't had to have sold it yet, but if they've approved it, it is held harmless, which means then that all the remaining dollars that we have to sell, so Leroy and his group can continue to do the work of the 22 bond issue, will be held harmless as if the homestead exemption was still at the 40 and not the 100. Otherwise, we would have to then think, well, we said that we weren't going to have a tax rate impact on the INS side because we didn't know that the legislature was going to go to 100, but it's all protected. So again, we can kind of work with that. But again, the legislature controls the purse strings. They could always change that down the road, I guess. So.
Well, and I'll just add that I think it's an excellent point. As you have all heard, that there is a discussion in and around a potential special session being called this October to address public education funding along with school choice and some other initiatives. And so we'll be following and paying really close attention, as we mentioned in convocations today, particularly to any changes into the formulas that will potentially increase revenue and allow us to relook at this budget, particularly an employee compensation package in the future. But again, that special session has yet to be called, and so we're operating based on the knowns at this point. And again, thank you, Dr. Braz and Tiffany and Jake and our entire business and finance team. This one was a little bit difficult in just navigating the unknown, particularly through the 2 special sessions and not exactly knowing what the rules of the game were going to be. So appreciate your hard work again.
Trustee Hall?
No, great minds think alike. I was hoping for a cheat sheet as well, but I'm wondering, based on just the discussion we had, if there could be some sort of link or explanation on our webpage that we can refer families to, because it is very challenging to explain, even some of the terminology today on revenue neutral. I mean, that's a term I just now heard. So I would really love, I don't want to add extra work, but if there's a way we can refer, even starting out with some of the vocabulary, just to help our communities make sense of it, so that we're not always seen as takers of a pot of money that they don't know was never going to come from them to us. So something along those lines.
I'm sure I could have staff get that, start working on that.
Ask who?
I could have staff start working on that.
I know, Tiffany's smiling, I know. Then Tiffany, you can share it at a committee meeting, and we could give you feedback on it, because we hear questions all the time, and that would just be great. I appreciate that. And real quick, just on our ADA, the 94,200, that was based on last year, right?
That's correct.
So am I trying to infer too much that we might have higher attendance this year? I mean, it sounds like other districts who started earlier than we did have seen an increase, which is a good sign. And so if we had more, does it change anything, or is that a pretty set in
No,
stone,
it is, if we find after the first 6 weeks that our ADA is trending higher, then what we would expect is, history has shown that that next 6-week period in January into February, there's always a drop-off, or at least there has been. So we would expect that, but last year that didn't happen. I think that's right, we didn't see the drop-off. But if more kids, more money.
Right.
So we just have to, again, the fact that we hit 94,000 and change compared to 93 where we expected was a pleasant surprise. As you'll see later in the budget amendment number 3 for this year, for 22-23's budget, it certainly did help us eat into that deficit that we started with, because we had more students attending. So if we were to get a number higher than 94,200, it would bring in more state assistance because there's more kids. So then we would see that the proposed deficit for 23-24 start to get smaller. But again, after two 6-week periods, once we get the numbers, we look at them and we think, are we ready to make a change? Probably not, right? We'll wait for 3 6-week periods to see whether or not, if we're reading the tea leaves, whether or not we can tell the superintendent we think that we can recognize more state assistance, and we go from there.
And that could come to the board too. So we could acknowledge that and possibly see where some of those funds could go.
Yeah, absolutely, through
yeah.
the form of budget amendments.
Sure.
The other piece to this equation, it's obviously increased enrollment, but it's also attendance rates. We
Right.
haven't realized pre-pandemic attendance rates just yet, and so anticipate, hopefully, knock on wood, that we'll start to see an increase in, like I say, our overall daily attendance. If we hold true to the trends, especially with our enrichment academies, but also kind of what's happening across the state with districts that have started, I anticipate that we're also going to see an increase in our pre-K 4 enrollment in kindergarten. Again, those numbers have been slightly below or below pandemic levels, and so hopefully we're going to see that trend continue.
And definitely high school. We need our high school numbers to come up. So our fingers crossed. Okay, thanks.
Trustee Duran?
Dr. Barajas, I just had a quick question. Once this appeals process is done with the county, when do we get that value?
Oh, it comes in monthly.
Oh, every month. Okay.
At the beginning of every month, Bear County sends us a supplement, which basically moves value off of what was under protest onto what they can tax on. So history has shown that from July of every year that we see a decrease in taxable value because things are coming off of the protester roll onto the roll, and that means that people are somewhat successful in lowering the value of their property. So we just track that per month. And now we have built a budget in our estimation on a value that is close to where we think we're going to end next August of 2024, what we're actually going to be able to tax on. That's what the history has shown us over the last couple of years. So again, we're not giving the superintendent or the board a dollar that's never going to materialize. So we're trying to cut this as close as possible. So again, it could be that at the end of the day, if what we predicted to be a deficit budget turns out to be a less of a deficit budget, it's usually because we collected more taxes than we estimated. More kids came than we estimated. Remember, I started the whole presentation with these are our estimates. It's pretty easy to estimate expenditures because people want to spend their budget, but vacancy rates are another estimate. So we have built this budget around a vacancy rate that we have seen over the last couple of years in the general fund that ranged per month anywhere between 8 to 10%. So there's no reason for us to budget at 100% occupancy if we know those positions, bus drivers, police officers, custodians, you name it, are never going to materialize. So we have, over the last several years, been pushing back on what we budget to operate the district because, again, we don't want to present a budget that is at 100% occupancy and then there are all these unspent dollars at the end of the year. So we're trying to manage that. But if the things that we've been implementing over the last several months work and vacancy rates start to go down, it may be a good thing that we have to come before the board and ask for an amendment to increase our budgeted expenditures because we have more filled positions, you know, so it's that kind of thing. So there's a lot of moving parts throughout the year that we're monitoring, and we usually have 3 or 4 times to get in front of the board to amend the budget, revenues or expenses. So we're in that mode now of monitoring so many things and then asking the superintendent, are you ready to pull the trigger on an amendment to recognize more revenues or more expenditures? And it's up to him whether or not he thinks, let's get more data before we come to the board, you know, that kind of thing. So.
Thank you.
All right. And I guess not to add any bad news, but one of the other unpredictable elements that we have, and I don't know if Metro Health or our health folks, I know they're tracking, but they've given feedback on that attendance part of it on, you know, COVID starting to potentially have a little bit of impact also, you know, what's going on lately. So I don't know if y'all have had any feedback on that or what's going on there.
Yeah, we're absolutely starting to track, particularly COVID-related illnesses and the uptick. And so hopefully we're not going to see the same impact that we've had or seen realized the past couple of years, but it is something we encouraged our nursing staff just this past week, but we're going to have to be very, very vigilant in trying to take care of ourselves and personal responsibility as much as possible because the ARIS variant and COVID is unfortunately starting to see a rise in cases.
Good. All right, and again, this was the public hearing. It wasn't for action. We'll have some budget actions later during the meeting. Do we have any citizens signed up or that wanted to speak during this?
For this agenda item, no, sir. We do have some for citizens, but not for budget hearing.
Okay, thank you. All right, seeing no further lights, we'll go ahead into our superintendent's report.
Okay, well, again, good evening. I've got quite a list as we've been welcoming back our departments, our staff. It's been, like I say, really fast and furious, but also a really enjoyable couple of weeks. We welcome back our leaders in our Leadership Institute. In fact, we've had the opportunity to provide the video, actually, that we recorded for the entire staff, and I think it's a pretty good overview. Again, thank you, Dr. Jordan, to you and your staff for providing a very quantitative and thorough look at our district, not only from a demographic standpoint, but also from an academic achievement standpoint. We had the opportunity to celebrate with our coaches, our students, our parents, and the athletic department with their Servant Leadership Summit. So again, Just a quick shout out to Stan Lane, Kim Ridgely with Whole Child Department, and Coach Mackey that did a great job and great turnouts at all three venues. Of course, our Richmond Academies kicked off at Cable and Westwood Terrace, and these are really exciting programs to see off the ground. We had the opportunity to visit, as I know many of you did as well, and Tom Knapp at Westwood Terrace and Deborah Pignon, like I say, have done phenomenal jobs. In fact, we had our land commissioner visit Cable Elementary School and was thoroughly impressed with the work that that staff is doing. Again, just a few more. We're welcoming back all of our departments. We had the opportunity to meet with the Northside Education Foundation board, and they have been very, very gracious in opening up a grant application for all of our new teachers to Northside for $150, really for classroom reimbursement, supplies, et cetera. So really appreciative of the Education Foundation. And of course, we launched our Safety First campaign to include our standard response protocol, but we've also put together a vaping video for particularly our parents to understand not only the legislative changes, but really some of the detrimental effects that we all know are associated with vaping. And so again, education campaign as we get ready to start the school year. It was great to see our custodial services team, our maintenance team. Hadn't had the opportunity to bring all these individuals into one venue in several years, and so it was a lot of fun. Like I say, Leroy, thank you to you and your team, Jeremy Deck and Mickey Hansen. It was great to see our supporting cast and the tremendous work that they do be acknowledged. Very quickly, we had the opportunity to celebrate with many of our student interns at the Whitty Museum on the 11th, and this was part of the SA Works internship program. It was really, really neat to see not only our students and just their careers that they're pursuing, but their internship opportunities, and of course the tremendous partnerships that we have with many of our business partners and employers throughout the community. And then we had two really successful backpack giveaways. This past Saturday, we had our Texas grandparents raising grandchildren at the Activity Center, and again, thank you to Dinah Ely and the Whole Child Department for supporting that event, as well as the John Jay Cluster at the food bank. At the food bank, we had probably 500 or so in attendance, and so we pretty well overran the food bank. Of course, the students were offered haircuts and just a multitude of services in preparation for the school year. And thank you all again for your support with our new teachers at Brandeis High School, both the elementary and secondary. It was a lot of fun to see, like I say, our newest professionals. It also made me feel really, really old at this point. Again, kicking off convocations, it was great to bring the staff back this morning. So we had two great convocations, and if you didn't have the opportunity to be with our staff today, you'll have 4 more opportunities, and would encourage you to like I say, come celebrate with us, because there's a lot to celebrate in the district. And real quickly, just on the staffing front, I mentioned this morning our HR department and our campuses have really, really worked hard, and we're moving the needle definitely in the right direction. We're actually down to 104 general ed vacancies, and so if you recall, that number was well over 250 not just too long ago. 104. So less than 1 per campus at this point. We're also down to 85 special education vacancies. So if you recall, that was well over 100 not too long ago. We've hired 79 individuals that are pursuing the Alt-Cert program, and again, thank you for support in that endeavor. And we have now 47 retiree hires, so definitely moving in the right direction. Food service, we're down to 36 total vacancies. Our custodial department, we're down to 192 vacancies, and in transportation, actually, this is cause for celebration as well. We're down to 58 CDL vacancies, and so I know that Mr. Galindo and I have been talking about this probably on a daily basis. We're really excited to see this number drop in, as well as our maintenance at 110 vacancies. So again, really would like to provide accolades to all those involved in the hiring process and taking on this initiative, this very important initiative as we prepare to start the school year. The 28th, we're going to welcome back 102,000 students, again, as I mentioned this morning, and we're excited to make it a great school year. So with that, Mr. President, any questions? And like I say, it's an exciting time of the year.
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Now we'll go over to our board members report. Any board members have any report? Is there not a video? Yeah, I'm trying to play that off. I assume there was.
We don't have a video moment, so please come to convocation, and that will. We've got a few things going on right now, Dr. Harrell. I'll be the first to admit.
I just love it. Okay.
We'll make up for it.
All right. Well, Trustee Hart, he's already. You want to go ahead and go, then we'll go to Trustee Lopez next.
No, I just wanted to echo your accolades for Stan Lang and the athletic department and the Kim Ridgely, the whole child department. Kim and Mary did a fantastic job with over 500 high school and middle school students who really got a good understanding on how their brain works and how it handles emotions. In walking around and talking to the students, there was this almost a consensus about we didn't know, and this is such good information, or if I only knew. And then some of the strategies they shared were priceless. But what was most, I guess, heartwarming and incredible, and David, you can echo any of these things, Corinne. We're really listening to the students talk about their own challenges and using the word mental health instead of social emotional or whatever, really being courageous about their own challenges in front of peers. That's the hardest thing to do, is to do speeches in front of peers, but to do something where you're talking about your own life was really, really remarkable, and really just kind of solidified the board's goal, along with the superintendent, of including more student voice in multiple ways. After all, school's happening to them. So that was wonderful. The speakers were great. Mackie, of course, wows everybody. What I do love, and at some time I'm going to put these all on a one-pager, but all these one-liners that you need, like when your day's going bad, like remember the lessons, not the losses. They were all, adages like that you were just going, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to write that down. Or, boy, I always wanted a tattoo. That's going to be my tattoo. But it was really, really good. My dream, I always think bigger than just that day and that time, if more students had that kind of opportunity to have that kind of experience. So Kim heard, and so the whole child department will look at that. The whole child department is going to do more frequent Be Well, Stay Well, and their next one's in October. And that's phenomenal for all our staff. It includes everybody in Northside. So instead of waiting till Valentine's Day or around Valentine's Day when we used to do it, have multiple Be Well, Stay Wells for the adults. The other thing that I wanted to invite anyone on the board, if they wanted to go to this Friday at John Jay at 11:30, and I can email y'all. I just got this, but last week, and I just got back into town. But 11:30 to 3 is the welcoming of the CIS site coordinators, and it'll be at John Jay if anyone's interested. It's lunchtime, and so you know how valuable our partners are, especially like CIS. So if you have that opportunity, go by. I'm going to do some sort of activity, but you're welcome to say some kind words as well. And then the last thing, I don't remember the day, but it was a couple weeks ago, several of us, or maybe trying to think, maybe it was just you and I, Karen, but we went to the Bear County Education Coalition meeting, and they were talking about Senate Bill 1605, which has huge implications for academics. And so, Janice, if we could just put that on academics committee to talk about how that will impact everything from curriculum to lesson planning. But there's also a huge board component that I guess we can add to retreat. But just some things like this. And I know Marisa talked about it at the governmental committee meeting, but what are our next steps? But they did a great job. Marisa was there, but so was I'm going blank on who was from Bear County Educate. Julia. Who said Julia? Oh, yeah, Julia, thank you. And Kelly was there too. So anyway, there was a lot of huge discussion on that. And it was from districts all over. So I think we were the only trustees, but there were curriculum directors from all over. So very powerful. And then I brought this for Monica to the PowerPoint to copy for the rest of the board. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of piggyback a little bit on some of the things that Dr. Kraft had mentioned. Wanted to thank for the Texas Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. We did a backpack event for that, and it was really great. And I wanted to thank a couple of individuals that had a lot to do with this. First of all, it had to be Mercedes Bristol, the executive director for the Texas Grandparents Raising Grandchildren, who was instrumental in starting the organization and bringing awareness to the grandparents within our community in Northside. We did identify 300 families, grandparents, and through that, we were able to give 255 backpacks, and we focused on Powell Elementary, Neff Middle School, Saul Ross Middle School, Holmes High School, Martin Elementary, Varial, and Linton, and it was well attended. And also, what happened was that the grandparents came in, got their backpack for the grandchildren, but they were also able to visit some of our service providers, which was CPS, Energy, SAWS, and then the Gonzaba Foundation, who was another partner. Those were instrumental partners because they deal with the lives of our community, with our seniors. So it was very instrumental, and it was very heartwarming to see them reach out and help out our seniors at that time, and to give back to the community, especially with their utility services. So I want to thank Diane Ely as well. I want to thank Dr. Kimberly Ridgely for that event as well. Dr. Kraft, I want to thank you very much for being a part of that and coming in and introducing yourself. It was a good way for the community to see you and meet you, so thank you for coming. Bobby, thank you for being there as well. As the board president, I did want to also thank Mr. Ortega from the Saul Ross community, the principal there, Irene Zinmeister, who was instrumental in organizing all of this and helping us put together this event. So thank them. I want to thank them personally for this, for the event. I also want to thank, again, Saul Ross Community for on Monday, they did a block walking event. It was about 600 teachers that went out, block walked, and just reminded the students and the parents that with some information and with backpacks if they needed it, just to remind them that, hey, Monday coming is first day of school. What do you need? How can we help you? So it was that kind of an outreach that was really important, and picked up a couple of, I think Channel 4 picked it up, and then it was on the newspaper. So it was well attended. And of course, we had a surprise guest. It was the Coyote. The Coyote showed up, the Spurs Coyote. So that always brings in a big roar and enthusiasm. So that was fun. And so it was really great. So I appreciate Saul Ross for doing that, starting off the year right. And it really kind of carried over into our convocations today. So wanted to thank the Fine Arts Department. I wanted to thank Barry, and I wanted to thank the athletics, Stan. great job, the police department keeping crowd control and traffic going smoothly. So thank you very much. It was inspirational, and I really enjoyed it. So great job to everybody that had a part in this. So thank you.
Thank you. It was the 8-foot coyote.
Oh, yeah, he was tall. Yeah, you're right. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Okay, back to business. Trustee Saldana?
I just want to reiterate what, is it on?
Yeah, you good.
I just want to reiterate what Gerald said to a large degree and what Dr. Kraft said. But Beyond the Game was incredible as it has been every year I've attended. Ross Block Walk, that was so much fun, seeing all those elementary schools that were there with the middle school and all the cheering and excitement and pictures. Convocation, I can't say enough about that. You know, our fine arts department does an incredible job. The athletic department making sure everything is ready. I mean, it's just so many people that have to put so much work into it, including our teachers and students who perform. New Teacher Academy, if Dr. Kraft thinks that he was really, really, really old, Dr. Kraft, I was really, 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 really old seeing those teachers. And then just finally, volleyball's going on right now. Our coaches are already working. We've already had several games, and district began today. So volleyball's already playing. Good luck to all our teams. And football starts Thursday night. So here we go, and we have an Alamo Dome game with Brandeis and O'Connor on Saturday night. So that should be very exciting for those schools. So good luck to our teams, our coaches. Thank you for the dedication that y'all put out there. And can't say enough for Mr. Muir and his staff for getting us all the help we need. Thank you all.
Thank you. And Trustee Freeman?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Blunt. There's been a lot going on, and you've heard so much of it. Dr. Kraft, I want to congratulate you on your first day of convocations. 1 out of 3. Good job. And I know it's not easy coming into a district that kind of has that history of doing that, but you did great, and it was fun. It was enjoyable for all. To my fellow trustees, we do have our TASB convention coming up, and I wanted to call your attention to, I do know that Ms. Guerra has registered all of us, so we all have rooms. If you're not going, and you're not going to need those rooms, please get in touch with her so she can cancel them at the appropriate time. And there is a pre-session conference that starts that Thursday at 2 o'clock. There's 3 separate options or sessions for y'all to attend, but you do have to register for that separately. There is an extra charge, so you do need to ask Ms. Guerrero to go ahead and register for you for that. And then we have the school board advocacy network that meets on Friday at 11:30. Y'all should have gotten emails on that. Just in case you missed it, I sent it to everybody today. You are responsible for registering yourself for that. There is no charge, but all you have to do is, it's clear in the instructions, you click the email and just let them know that you would like to attend. And especially for our new board members, it is a free lunch, so you might want to take advantage of that. There's not any free lunch at convention. So there's your opportunity. And TASB-GR is really good too. They will have a guest speaker. In history has it, it's been one of our legislators and talk about legislative issues and such. But I would recommend it. It's a good thing to attend. And that would be it, Mr. Blunt.
Thank you. Trustee Salcido?
Excuse me, I just want to talk about my first convocation today. It was awesome.
There you go.
So,
Yours too.
I got to speak at the second one, so that was even better. Because I'm an introvert, so that was hard for me to see all these people looking at me like, it's a big old stage by myself on there. I was like, okay. But I got through it, so we're good.
You did great.
I just wanted to thank everyone that worked summer to get our graduates to the finish line. I attended summer graduation, and I wanted to almost tear up because I know that those kiddos were the ones that really pushed hard to finish and graduate. So shout out to everyone that worked summer school to get those kiddos through the finish line. And there are some adults, right, also that graduated that it was just really impressive to see all the schools in our district and seeing them finalizing, you know, that journey, and their families were so happy for them. And I met a young man outside that I almost teared up because I saw him by himself, and I was like, I wanted to give him a hug because it looked like he wanted to cry, and I wanted to be his cheerleader, but he was just waiting for his grandma to come, so I was glad he wasn't alone. There took some time to come down. And so if you've never worked summer school, those are hard hours. So I just want to shout out to all those teachers that helped our kiddos finish. Thank you to all our community members that are donating for back to school. I know that through Diana Lee's office, we also always take donations for clothing and school supplies throughout the year, so keep that coming. Thank you for all the stuff, the bus through CIS that they do. That's tremendous work. I've ran a few of those in the past, and it's a lot of work. So I just want to shout out to the entire community. Also, with the changes that are happening on at our school, I want to thank Barry for the communication pieces on social media. There's more to come with that, but continue to share that information. Continue to refer folks for those positions. There's the employee referral incentive, and I hope that's working for us. So we still have vacancies to fill, and I just want to thank everyone that's helping us fill those gaps so we can start off our school year successfully.
Trustee Freeman, do you have another?
I'm sorry, Bobby, one more thing. I just wanted to congratulate, for those of you who didn't know, Ms. Saldana has been accepted into the Leadership TASB program.
Oh, you gonna do that?
So, congratulations.
Travel the state.
Good.
And so no pressure on our two new board members, but you have to be, I think, at least a couple of years before you can apply. So that makes 5 of us, and so that's great. Congratulations.
Is there a special award if we
Yes. We'll create a special award. The most awesomest.
There you go, most awesome award.
And I just have just a couple items. I do want to go back to the convocations. And Dr. Kraft did one compliment his staff, which is definitely well deserved. I know we'll talk more about it after we go through all 6, but right now definitely. But the interesting part that I like is how well he adjusts, and he knows what's going on around the audience and the groups and other things else. So that's the fascinating part to watch. So I compliment you on that, without a doubt. Just to relate a couple other things. And first, Gerald is a big part of the Texas grandparents raising grandchildren, and it's a big part of making that success. So thank you, Gerald, for that. I was, oh yeah, but no, you're a big part. All right, take credit, Gerald. You did good. All right, thank you, Gerald. I also participated in the block walking with Linton, and I was with a 17-year veteran teacher. And the fascinating part to me was not only how excited the kids were, we went up to the doors and meet the families, but how excited that 17-year veteran was to introduce herself and to meet the families. It was really fascinating to see. And one of the doors that we knocked on was actually a grandparent that I met at the event.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, from Lytton. So we recognized each other, and it was great to see him in his home environment. I was only there for a short while that day, unfortunately, but we actually talked for a while, and it was just, he was surprised, I was surprised. So that was connecting things together. That was great. And the last thing I'll let the board know is we are going to have a meeting for those that can make it at 6 p.m. tomorrow with the San Antonio trustees in the area. The biggest focus is House Bill 114, and the impact that we're all fearful that's going to have on not only our data, our kids, and other things. So we want to have, and I know some of the districts are doing it, but we want to do it as all of the trustees. So for our stations over there, like 4 and 29 and others, not to call anybody out, we really want to have a mass campaign across all of San Antonio to make everybody aware. So we'll talk about it tomorrow. Okay?
Is it Zoom?
Yeah, I'm sorry. As soon as I get back after this meeting, I will be sending out, we will send out the Zoom link. It will be Zoom. Okay?
Can you record it?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Recording the Zoom since.
Yeah, No, that's a good idea. Yeah, we'll do that. Okay, good, thank you. All right, so I think that completes our board reports. So no recognitions or general reports tonight, so next we'll go to our citizens to be heard. I think we have 2 citizens signed up?
We actually have 3.
3
Yes,
citizens
sir.
signed up? Okay. So let me
the,
go through the rules for addressing our board. So we believe citizens to be heard is important and meaningful, and we will listen to what you have to say. We value your opinions, although this is real important. We are restrained by law from taking any action at this particular meeting. We ask you to address your remarks to the board. Confine your remarks to an NISD policy or practice. Limit your remarks to 3 minutes, and we'll have both a clock display, and at 3 minutes, you'll be asked to wrap up your remarks. We'll get to the 2-minute point, so you know you got a minute left. Our board secretary will hold up the yellow card, and then when it hits that 3-minute point, we'll have a couple of visual indicators, but we'll also hold up the red card, okay? And we do ask not make any personal attacks on any individuals. So I think we're ready to call them up.
Yes, sir. The first individual we have signed up is Ms. Wanda Lagoria.
Good evening, President Blunt, Dr. Kraft, and esteemed board members. Wanda Longoria, President of Northside AFT. The 2023-24 school year has already begun with several wonderful NISD community events attended by our students, parents, staff, and community members. Northside AFT was able to attend the Grandparents Raising Grandchildren event at NAC, and we were pleased to see many students and parents demonstrate their excitement and appreciation for what the district is doing to ensure that grandparents in our district are supported through this valuable community project. We were happy to donate and participate in this important event, and we hope to see this program grow in support of those senior citizens who are struggling to raise their grandchildren towards success. As we approach the new school year, we wanted to address a few issues that concern us. You've already mentioned that you're going to be looking at HB 114, and that is where we're concerned with as well. We understand the pressures these new requirements will place on our school district. We're concerned with the fact that the states require new guidelines in relation to vaping and e-cigarettes without funding, thus putting added pressure of personnel and space burdens on districts. More importantly, we're concerned with the impact this may have on our students. While we already have heard discussions from this board on its plans to inform parents and students, our concerns go even beyond this. Our fear is that certain populations of students may be unintentionally targeted due to their marginalized status and limited access to resources. While we understand the premise behind implementing vaping sensors, we're concerned that the numbers of DAEP hearings and placements may become unmanageable and unsustainable. We also fear that just implementing a compliance and punitive model in policy does not get to the root of mitigating the problem. So we're asking our board to seriously consider intervention pieces as part of the policy to assist our students in dealing with the root of the issue, which we know health impacts through education and assistance with addressing addiction issues related to vaping. We're also asking that innovative ways of addressing behavior issues beyond punitive measures be considered as well. Positive messaging and creative interventions work well for all students. We're asking that our leaders use that model of innovation, educational programs, and counseling programs to equip our students to deal with this dangerous health threat as well as other behavioral concerns. Northside AFT also believes implementing a grace period for parents and students to adjust to the new, more serious consequences related to vaping and e-cigarettes would be beneficial. We know that the continued pressures from TEA and state legislation add to the work and cost of running our public schools, and this is why, more than ever today, we must work collaboratively with parents, students, and our community to find workable solutions to this and other concerns of our students and that students and staff face daily. And we especially are happy to hear that student voice is being considered, because it is important that they come to the table and give their challenges and solutions. Thank you for
Good. Thank you, Juan. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Interesting coincidence, Owen. That's great. Thank you. All right.
Next we have Mr. Caesar Pompos.
Good evening. My name is Cesar Campos. I am a proud parent of a Luna Middle School, soon-to-be 6th grader. I know. It's actually excited to start, believe it or not. Today, I would like to brief you or speak to you about an important issue that I think it's in everybody's radar, which is safety. I think most of us have heard the saying that history will repeat itself. And at times it's a good thing, at times it's not. The scenario that I'm going to bring up today is one of the ones that I think we can all agree we will not like to see ever happen again. In February 4th, 2013, there was a student, a Luna student, who actually was struck by a vehicle crossing Potranco Road. Luckily, no permanent damages to the kid, but nevertheless, it was something tragic that no parent ever wants to hear. Unfortunately, the speed limit at Potranco is actually 50 miles per hour, and this is a road that we're expecting middle schoolers to be able to cross to get to school. Myself, along with various other parents, are having to ultimately send our kids walking to the school because there's the lack of having enough drivers and the constraints that we have in the budget from throughout the district. Additionally, there are no sidewalks on Grossenbacher, which mandates kids, specifically mine, to be able to walk east, walk north, only to have to walk right back west to Grossenbacher. To add, there are actually no streets or no street lights on Reed Ranch, which covers a good portion of the area where students would have to walk on in order to get to Luna Middle School. Moreover, there are actually no cross guards at any of the intersections, which again, it poses a huge risk for students walking to school. And again, increases the chance for the incident to take place again. There has been an influx in speeders trying to cut through the community, and in order to avoid some of the traffic at Potranco, but nevertheless, definitely increasing. I understand that driver shortages, as it was briefed earlier today, and budget constraints take a big toll on your guys' decision, but we respectfully ask and request that you please consider either allowing the community of Weston Oaks to have a bus system or a route, or consider adding, making it a school zone to Potranco, so that way it slows down the drivers and the traffic in the area. Again, this is a concern of many. I am a single parent, so I don't have a choice but to have my son walk to school. And I know that many others in the area share the same sentiment. I've reviewed your guys' bios, and I understand you guys are extremely smart. I see PhDs here, and as a doctoral candidate myself, I know that you guys will try to come up with a way to solve the issue. And from the bottom of my heart, I truly, truly do believe that you guys will give it your best shot and are working towards it. Again, thank you for allowing me to address the board. Have a good one.
Let me, if I may now, we can't have discussion, you understand that part of it. But I will acknowledge, so the board knows, I've gotten several of the emails. I think others have too, concerning the areas. But I was going to ask if you might could talk to the process a little about, so they understand the hazardous committee and some other things. So,
So every spring, we have a committee that actually led by our Director of Transportation that includes police, administrators, parents, and teachers, of course. And so they review a number of routes that, based on changes around the neighborhood, we decide, or they decide, whether they are at a point and they deem it safe enough to where the route itself now does not have to exist and students can walk. And so we'll have to review your situation, but typically that's what leads to the elimination of service. It's a thorough review. We communicate late in the spring, sometimes even in the summer if we have to go back out there. But we do everything from some of what you described, including crossing guards. We work with the city, the county, in terms of deeming it a school zone. That's a little more elongated process, if you will, but it's something we've done as well. And so all of that to mitigate the fact that obviously there's a lot of traffic in some cases is what we try to do to, as safe as possible, have a route for children. And in your case, perhaps in others, we also, if there's concern and there's the elimination of service, actually provide the walking route that we recommend, and we actually have folks that go out there. Sometimes it's a little longer than what they're used to. However, it does have adequate sidewalks. There are traffic lights, and in some cases that crossing guard with the cross walk as well that we recommend they take in order for that to be the safest route and them get to and from school.
To your point, and I know I'm already out of time.
yeah, but I can't let you discuss though.
Okay, sure.
But no, what I want
We'll
to do is
follow
just,
up.
but what we can do is connect y'all two together, and
please.
then you can,
Yeah,
okay.
thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate you.
Okay.
You'll have a good one.
Okay.
Next, we have Grace Garza.
Hello, my name is Grace Garza, and I am a teacher and parent in the district. I have been proudly serving Northside ISD students and families and the community for going on 13 years. I started off as an instructional assistant and then special education collaborative teacher, and now an ALE teacher that I have the opportunity to work with students with special needs to facilitate learning based on differential learning and instructional styles. Throughout the years, I have seen teachers leave the field of education for personal reasons, change of careers, and various other reasons. For me personally, I choose to stay because I love the students and families I work with. I believe that every student is valued and capable of learning. I like to think that I work in the best school district. When I first started my career as a teacher, college did not truly prepare me. It was the support of all the training in the district that the district provided and the peer support. I have become a better teacher for my students, not to mention all the paperwork it entails. As a parent of Northside, I work in a school further away from where I live. My daughter attends a school closest to where we live. I choose that school for her because she has all her friends within the neighborhood and it's an excellent school. She is in a learning tree and an after-school program that I pay $255 a month. It would have been so convenient to enroll my other daughter in the Early Childhood Center program at the same school, but I could not afford the $800 a month. Instead, I was able to enroll her in pre-K for SA since their enrollment is based on a sliding scale. With the teacher shortage, teacher exodus, and the Texas lawmakers not raising teachers' pay, Northside ISD has successfully hired more than 800 teachers from returning retirees, recent college graduates, experienced teachers, and career switchers who received the alternative certification. Congratulations on bringing the workforce. Now that Northside has hired all these teachers, let's continue to support them and retain them. Let's support teachers, staff, and their families. I propose teachers and staff who have their children in Learning Tree receive a discounted rate. I propose lower or reasonable rates for the ECC program, and with the current pre-K standards for enrollment, it's based on language, educational disadvantaged, homeless, military foster care, or Star of Texas award. Can we include students whose parents work in the district? On a legislative level, teachers need better rights when it comes to maternity and paternity leave. Through Family and Medical Leave Act, FMLA, the district provides employees up to 12 weeks of unpaid leave. Often staff save up their unused days so their pay will not be docked. Hopefully, with the next legislative session, there will be a bill that will support paid time off. Northside is already committed to leading the way on best practices. Let's continue to transform the learning of experience for students and continue to support Northside teachers, staff, and their families to ensure sustainability.
Got it. Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Grace, can you share those recommendations? Is that a copy that, I couldn't write fast enough, thank you.
I'll take it.
Oh, thank you.
Anything further, Trustee Arnold?
No,
Good.
that was-
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, that completes our citizens to be heard portion.
Yes, sir.
So next, that takes us over to the consent agenda. There's a motion to come before the board on the consent agenda. Trustee Harrell?
I move that we accept the consent agenda as written.
You good?
That's it?
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, have a motion second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, now it's been moved and second that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Good, motion carries. All right, so thank you all. We approved our consent agenda. Next, we go over to, our next area is going to be facilities and operations.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, like I say, it's been a busy time of year, and with that being said, Leroy San Miguel has a couple of schematic designs for your review and consideration, and then we'd like to talk about a third project with Colonies North as well.
So the first item we have for you today is our newest, soon to be new, magnet school at the middle school. That would be Jack G. Jordan Middle School. So the building committee had reviewed the presentations and made some commentaries and certainly some suggestions that we were taking into consideration as we give this presentation to you today. So with us today, we have from Fluger Architects is there's Robin. Robin Opa will give us a presentation.
All right, thank you, President Blunt, Dr. Kraft, board members. We're delighted to be here today to, well, we're going to go in backwards in reverse. So forget everything that you're seeing right now. So we're delighted to be here today to present to you our schematic design for Jordan Middle School for the digital media arts magnet that's there. One of the things that we like to do at the beginning, though, is reflect back on the master plan that was presented in early 2022, just to make sure that we're staying true to the intent of a long-range plan for that campus. And you'll see that in the first leg of the master plan, it was planned to address a magnet addition at the campus, as well as address some inequities for the administration area. You'll also notice that we had planned to do quite a large addition at the campus, and that was because we had anticipated to need to supplement the magnet classroom spaces while keeping the existing classroom spaces for Jordan Middle School students. And what you'll see in the presentation is that we were able to actually ascertain that due to current campus enrollment and projections, they had spare capacity at their existing campus. So we were able to segue that into a more renovation-heavy project with minimal addition, thus being truer to the budget. So as we go into the 2022 bond project, as I mentioned, this is going to be the new home for the Digital Media Magnet School. We're going to address with some new canopies for weather protection for our car riders, and also addressing some exterior lighting at the existing bus canopy at the back end of the school. So some other considerations, although they weren't specifically spelled out in the bond language, we know that this campus would benefit from having a secured front lobby or a secured vestibule and a really prominent entry for that campus, as well as addressing the security and perimeter fencing, especially with the current TEA requirements pertaining to safety and security. Programmatically, we're looking at addressing a little under 27,000 square feet to house the magnet program, and this is going to be a mix of new addition and renovation work. If you look at the existing site plan at Jordan, one of the first things that we did, again from that campus perimeter security aspect, is we went out and surveyed what the existing fence conditions are at that campus. And there's a mix of 4-foot and 6-foot tall chain link fence, the fabric of which is not considered non-scalable by TEA, and there's also 6-foot tall wood fence that separates the neighborhood from the campus. What we are proposing to do is go back and in areas that are less prominent or less of a public view, go in with an 8-foot tall chain link fence, which that 8-foot tall height meets the TEA requirement for a secured perimeter element for a campus. And then the areas that are a little bit more public or to view for traffic along Jordan and along Richland Hills Drive, we're going to go in with a 6-foot tall welded wire fence. And so that's a little bit of a nicer looking fence than a standard chain link. It's not quite as costly as a ornamental or steel picket fence, and it is considered non-scalable, so we can keep it at that 6-foot tall length or height. What you'll also notice is that that 6-foot tall wood privacy fence is actually not on school property. So we are going to be going right along next to it with our 8-foot tall chain link fence and providing enough separation there so that grounds and maintenance can still maintain and keep weeds at bay. One of the things that the building committee asked us to look at was the campus right next door, Evers. And so we went back out and, again, kind of ascertained what the existing conditions are. Similar to Jordan, they have a mix of 4-foot and 6-foot tall chain link fence. And so what we are planning to do is provide provisions in the documents to replace, again, along the more prominent roads with a 6-foot tall welded wire fence, and we put a little inset in the upper corner of that photo. If you're not entirely sure what welded wire means, that's the kind of fence that you would see with that. And then the rest of the elements would be an 8-foot tall chain link fence. As we look at the existing first floor plan, this is that classroom wing that we were able to ascertain we could kind of recoup all the square footage in that wing because the campus has an abundance of classrooms to be able to meet their middle school needs. And so we are going to be doing a small addition to kind of wrap 2 sides of that classroom wing. Everything in dark green is a renovation area, and everything in light green is a new addition that we are going to be constructing. You will see that we are developing a secured vestibule, a common secured vestibule for that campus, so that will address all visitors that come to the campus, whether they are coming to the magnet school or to the middle school proper. The admin area for the magnet is on the secured side of that vestibule. We are doing a little bit of rework in the admin for Jordan Middle School, mostly because where this receptionist is going to be sitting to monitor that secured vestibule, currently it's a book room. So we're going to be taking that space, converting it into that reception counter and workstation, but then we have to do some reconfiguration elsewhere. The admin area for the magnet is very similar to the number of spaces that we've provided previously at Zachary and at Jones Middle School. And then because this magnet is focused on the digital media and art, their CTE labs are much more computer-based, so they're a little bit larger like you would expect a computer lab to be. On the second floor, this is what the current floor plan looks like. And when we do our addition to wrap 2 sides of it and we reconfigure that existing classroom wing, we are able to recoup the balance of the classroom spaces and lab spaces that the magnet needs, and we are also developing a collaboration area very similar to the space over at Zachary and at Jones that you've seen that I think those magnet programs have really benefited from. When we look at what that visual is going to look like at Jordan, we know one of the challenges here, this campus was designed back in the day when maybe a very, very prominent front door wasn't high on a priority list the same way that it is today. And so what we're doing is really trying to focus your eye to that front door. And so with a really large extended canopy to provide some weather protection and some very obvious campus identification, helping to really kind of draw the eye and draw visitors towards that front door. If we look at just a different angle of that, that is what you will see when you are walking in from the parking lot. And then as you get out of your car and you're walking towards that front door, it just really begins to give the campus a little bit of a transformational feel. One of the things that we also talked about at building committee is that this is a really nice tall canopy, very similar to what you will have seen over at Zachary Middle School, but it's a great way to introduce some opportunities for some branding or some campus identification, especially with this being a digital media arts magnet program. I could imagine that that program would have maybe actually be instrumental in designing what those banners and those identifying elements might become. If we look over at the back side of that classroom wing, this line of demarcation right here is actually the end of the existing building. And so everything to the right of that is our new addition. So we're keeping the architectural language very similar and very complementary to what that existing strong language is out there. The bus loop along the back and the canopy is going to remain, and we will provide weather protection to connect our new addition to that bus loop. And then if you were a bird flying up in the sky, this might be what you would see. We are providing a very long and generous canopy along the car rider line. The other thing that this does is it allows that queuing to get further into the campus. The natural inclination is for parents to drop off right here, which is obviously impacting traffic. So every little bit that we can get those cars to advance into this campus to be able to drop off is a benefit to the queuing that happens off-site. As we go inside, this is going to be your main entry to the magnet admin. So this view is as if you walked through the secured vestibule and you are in that main corridor. The cafeteria is down at the end of this corridor, and these stairs go up to the second floor of the new addition. And these are the top of those stairs, and you're starting to get just a little glimpse around that corner of what that common collaboration area is going to be for the magnet. We're envisioning that this is a really great opportunity for some wall graphics, some branding. Again, maybe it's some sort of a student-led effort through that digital media and magnet program. The collaboration area that these magnet students and teachers will be able to enjoy is, again, just very similar in feel to what you will have seen over at Zachary and at Jones. We did do some light studies because this is going to be an east-facing exposure, and so the morning is really going to be the most critical time to really be able to analyze what that light infiltration is going to look like. And so looking at it at the fall and the spring equinox and at the winter solstice was important for us to be able to know what that light is going to do and how to properly address it. And then if you went to the other side of the collaboration area and looked back, this is what that will look like. This furniture is all just representation, but you can start to imagine what that will feel like for these students. And I will take any questions that you have.
All right.
I just have a quick question. You said there's going to be shared new security area between the Jordan and then the magnet?
Yes, they will share a common secured vestibule. So this will be the main entry for the campus. And then as somebody checks into the reception, depending on where they go after these doors, they may go into the front office for Jordan, or they may come here for the front office for the magnet program. You're welcome.
Trustee Salcido?
Excuse me, on the bond committee, you talked about the doors.
The doors, yes.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the end.
Yeah, I don't know if you're,
Glass.
Dave, check your mic, Dave.
We talked about removing the glass from here.
So that is the door to the front admin area. So I think as a standard that wants to have glass for visibility of students in the hallway. That is not a classroom door.
Okay, that's the office?
That is the office, yes, sir.
That's it, I'm sorry.
Trustee Freeman?
Thank you, Bobby. I was at that committee meeting, and I just started this particular picture right here. So I know that when you get there, you've already gone through security, but that's just an empty hall. It looks really stark. Like, could you, do we have any thoughts as to what happens with that? So you'll see that there's just a little hint of some pattern up here. What we are envisioning is that there's some sort of material or wall graphic that's going to wrap and kind of liven it up. We will come back, obviously, when we do our colors and interiors. The intent is that this will be very interesting.
By the way, this is devoid of color.
Okay, on purpose, on purpose.
Right? So it's not going to look like this.
I guess I understand that. I picture it, though, as like a foyer or something, and I know sometimes our schools get very creative themselves, and I don't know, maybe benches or something. It just
Might be
And the
Just
campus
empty.
will order furniture, once we get to that point. I foresee there may be some seating in this particular area.
Yeah.
And of course, we could see blank spaces where graphics will go up. Even in the entry, if you go to Zachary, they got a wrap that goes up at the top that punctuates the entry, like welcome or something like that. Those are things that are coming in when we start talking about colors and graphics to kind of liven up the space. It looks stark because it's kind of like, there's nothing there.
It might be a good opportunity for some display cases that we could actually display some student work and product.
I'm very glad you said that because we do have some here, but this may be an opportunity to bring some more.
Really
in.
highlight
Yeah.
our students' successes.
Yep. I'm sorry?
The other thing that I know that we've done and we've talked about is put some monitors up there. I know I went to a middle school in Austin where they had something very similar. They had a big monitor and they could display the artwork and the digital. So that's something also that we could do is just a wall of digital, because that's what this is all
That's what
about.
they're going to be doing. So.
So we're still exploring those possibilities, but there's a lot of opportunity for us to make it real impactful.
Thank you. Leroy, help me understand or remind me, we had a discussion centered around the glass at the classroom. This is towards, I'm looking at the last one, right? This is that. So there was a discussion, because I was at the meeting too as well. We were talking about the safety of the kids from the line of sight. Did we make any adjustments on that, or was there, what was that? Because I looked at it here on this design, and I'm assuming you took it off, right? And you only allowed one entry point?
Well, so that is the existing floor plan.
Oh,
what you
okay, I'm
just
sorry.
Pointed at. But what I will point out on the second floor is, if you'll remember, these are the classrooms that we were talking about, and they had the sliding
Yes.
doors, but then they had a swing door on the opposite corner of the room. So what we've done is we've moved those all onto one side, so it gives some coverage here to be able to get students.
You moved what? What did you move again?
The swing door.
The swing door. So you took away, you removed the glass door, right, or no?
No, it's still shown, but it's right next to the swing door. So both points of entry are next to each other, so you get a more protected corner on the opposite side.
There's only one entrance into the classroom.
Yes.
We narrowed it down from one, and then, and is the glass door a sliding glass door?
It is,
or-
yes. It's
so
a
just
sliding, it's a sliding door, and it'll have a film on it as well.
It's gonna have a film of what? I mean, like a tint, or is it gonna be ballistic? Okay.
Ballistic, because we had to go back to Zachary and have that same discussion about how do we, when they have to go into a lockdown or modified lockdown, where the kids go, and visual becomes really, really important. So at Zachary, we put not only did we put an obscure film on those glass doors and the windows, but we also put a little bit of ballistic glass as well, just in case.
Right.
So that's our thought process, is to be able to harden that up a little bit more.
And how, that's from ceiling to floor, right?
Up to the glass of the sliding doors.
Okay.
Because it has sliding doors, and I think it's got some glass adjacent to it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. The whole concept started off with, we wanted to create excitement.
Sure.
Kids that are probably not in the magnet, that hang out in that want to see what's going on in that classroom, and it brings excitement and hopefully opportunities for them to enroll. However, because of security, we have to find balance, and that becomes real challenging for us.
So I guess, how big is this, how big is the room is my question then? Let me ask that, because I guess my concern is line of sight, one, right? And where can, if, let's say they come in from, I'm just saying,
Right.
God forbid something happens, right? An attacker comes in, intruder comes in, by chance breaks through, whatever, comes in and comes from coming this direction and is able to see the class, able to see inside the classroom by chance, right? I don't know. You know, where would the kids hide, or where, I mean, where could they hide eventually? I mean,
So if you imagine behind this wall, right where my cursor is, that's the wall that separates the two classrooms from each other. So you have a door and a slider that is for this classroom right here. And so the hiding place
be there.
out of line of sight is going to be in this pocket.
is that the recommended place, or would that be the safest place for them to hide, or is that like
To be out of line of sight.
to be out of sight, yeah, out of line of sight? Okay.
One of those that we have discussed, when we open the school, we go out there as a team and then help the campus administration try to determine where are the places to go. I'm not gonna say.
Sure.
about
No,
where they would
yeah.
hide because it's a.
No, yeah, but
Nevertheless, that's something that's done. We also can put film on the glass, so it's very obscure, so you can't really see through it. So there's a multitude of things that we can do. But we've taken the model from Zachary and improved it from a security perspective.
see, and I think that's good. I'm glad that we're doing that, because I know that's just one of the options that we were looking at, and so I'm glad y'all were looking at that. So I appreciate that very much for the consideration, because I know that was one of the concerns we talked about in the committee. And so, thank you for that one. Very good. Thank you for the clarification on that one. And if you could just kind of reiterate to me a little bit about when we talked about the fencing, the metal fencing, that was one of the things that we talked about too. I don't know, we don't have a picture of, oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, I didn't see that. I thought that was very unique. I wanted to compliment you on that for offering that because I thought it was, doesn't make it look, it's not the chain link fence, one, but it's almost like kind of like a design, architectural design, and kind of gives that feel of, you know, openness as well, right? Because it's clear, but a whole lot different from a chain link fence. So that's what I really liked about it. It didn't seem like we were kind of prisoning, prison sense. So thank you very much for that option, and I really like that design and that, and you know, for the fencing and stuff. So, and then I like the architecture as far as the front, the Jordan, you know, where it says the Jordan, the new design on that. I know we talked about the windows on that. What did we finally decide on the windows for the entry? We were looking at the, I think, are we going to shrink them a little bit, or were we going to?
So the windows down in here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
So
ma'am.
those are the windows from the administration
Right.
side. Looking out, what we will be doing is when we do our safety and security review, we will determine what type of glass and or film
Right.
needs to go on those, and it may be a different grade as you get further away from that entry
Sure.
point. But there is also a benefit of being able to, because this is where you're going to be able to see everybody coming in as well. So we want to be able to balance that as well for visualization.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. No more questions.
Trustee Sedania?
Leroy, refresh my memory on the back site. I thought we talked about not really being real comfortable with that long window.
This one here?
Uh-huh, because it was so open, you know, that a shooter could see through that easily. What did we decide about that?
We were talking about the possibility to put film on that as well, because this is wide open to the front of the school. So when we do our assessment, and then, by the way, there's be another review. This is schematic, kind of gives us the concept and the idea of where direction we're moving towards. But there will be another safety review of this campus, and that's when we talked about the possibilities. But the first thought is that all of these are going to have to be treated in some fashion, way, or form. Because obviously, this is wide open. They can walk all the way around here.
And that's why I thought we talked a little bit about that edge, the edge where that long window is, that we weren't real comfortable with that huge window there.
We obviously can make it smaller. We can make it, you know, these are the old ribbon windows, and certainly we can make that smaller. I think what we provide is windows into every classroom. That's been the philosophy we've adopted for many, many, many years. However, if this is a little too big, then we certainly can shrink that back down. We can do that in our.
So we're still possibly looking at a few changes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Trustee Salcido?
Yeah, I got another question on the last page. We discussed removing the glass window next to the door. I can't see way back there. Is that a window next to the door? Way back there, right there.
Right there?
Yes.
Yes. So you found one that we missed.
Oh, okay. All right.
There you go. Good idea. We'll take that one out.
And just one comment, one suggestion, and one quick question for you. Since with the magnet school direction this was heading, you know, communications arts can be helpful also in terms of things like, you know, if you do have digital display, you know, lighting, trading that off, how does it block your screen, and some other ideas. So they, you know, they're potentially, since, you know, they've been doing that for a while, may be helpful on some of that input. The other one that I had question-wise, it goes to yours, on the fencing, again, everybody's back to the fencing. It may be just me visually. So from the whole campus perspective, does it go all the way around? Well, let me get to my question. All right. Somebody that's coming to watch an event on those fields, do they have to go through the front door entry, or is there a space in that? Is there a
I
gate?
believe that there's a gate right
Is there? Okay,
in that
thank you.
area.
Okay, thank you. No, you answered. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, we have to access that field, especially from the exterior as well. So
Yeah.
Okay.
there'll be strategic gates. I need
Okay.
gates in there.
And then for
bowling
maintenance and,
things of
yeah.
that nature
Okay.
as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? This one is recommended by action from the superintendent and staff. Is there a motion to come before the board? Such as the building committee, chair?
I move that we accept the schematic design
All right, have a
for
motion?
Jordan Middle School, magnet.
Second.
motion and a second. Any
Second.
further discussion? All right, it's been moved and second that we accept the schematic design for Jordan Middle School magnet. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, okay, so it shows a 6-0 vote. Thank you. All right, so now we're going to our next one, Esparza Elementary.
Yes, Gregorio Esparza Elementary School, the 22 bond provided for a building upgrades that primarily relates to the cafeteria, gym, and various renovations within the campus. So we have schematic design ready for presentation, and we have Sean Carlson and John that are going to give you the presentation.
Hello.
Good evening, Dr. Kraft, President Blunt, members of the board, senior staff, and guests. As Leroy said, I'm Sean Carlson with K-Energy Architects, and I'm here this evening with my colleague and business partner, Mr. John Ritteman. And we're here to present our recommendation for the building replacement renovation project as far as an elementary school. To give you a little bit of history and kind of orient you with Esparza, Callahan Road is up here. This is Hempel Drive. And we are surrounded on the other three sides by Zarzamora Creek, drainage easement, and other drainage easement. The only access we have is off of Hempel Drive. The existing campus started out in 1971, and there were additions subsequent 72, 77, and I believe 91. That was also the last time that the kitchen cafeteria was renovated. Currently, we have bus loop and faculty parking. We have the student drop-off, and then we have additional visitor parking. There are 4 points of entry on this campus, all off of Hempel Road, and we'll talk about that in a second, how we improve that along with the master plan. Currently, there's 160 parking spaces provided at this campus. To get you oriented, secure vestibule, existing cafeteria platform, serving line and kitchen, and the administration area. Later additions were actually sprinkled, and the front half of the building was not. That's part of our scope, is to sprinkle the front part of that building. But this is the existing conditions. Front canopy entry, which was done about 2 years ago, leading up to the secure vestibule. And the gym is the old metal building gyms that are separated. Next slide, please. Just an image of entryway that was done a few years back. That is the main entrance back there. School colors are blue and white. There was a master plan approved by the board in 2020, and there is a floodplain that comes through here, so it limits us where we can put the deficiency. So when we did the master plan, the gym and cafeteria combination were deficient when we looked at that. Also, the administration area was way undersized. So in this project, we're recommending new cafeteria, gym, and kitchen, along with an administration renovation. You can see that we are keeping in context with the master plan. One of the comments, though, at the board meeting when it was approved was to work on the queuing. If you've been to Esparza, there's a very big issue with off-site queuing that happens on Hempel Road. So we have worked on that. We've removed one of the entries. We still have 3, but this is more of a fire service entry at the top, which will have a pipe gate there. And then we are using this entry point. We're coming in and we're double stacking and queuing, and we're also coming out. It would be a right-hand turn only. We are moving the bus loop to the lower half, and then staff parking down here. There will be a fence and a gate to secure that, and then for the bus, we're providing a new canopy so the kids can get in inclement weather. When we did the master plan, there were 3 buses that served the campus. There's currently, I think last year there was 1. I don't know what the projection is for this year. But, We are, because of the soils on the entire site, recommending we pull the building away from the existing. It's not a piered building, it's a shallow foundation. So we're going to separate the building by 20 and then have a hard connection going back to the new addition, which is the cafeteria gym. And so we have a courtyard out here. It's going to kind of become the focal point. The entry's here. We're going to renovate the existing cafeteria and kitchen into the new administration area. I have an enlargement of that I'll show in a minute. And then we're going to have the gym, cafeteria, the kitchen, and then we're also moving the music room next to the platform. The district likes to have those together. An enlargement of that. For safety, we have the gym, we have 2 restrooms off of the gym so that the teachers can keep visual control. Same thing when we get in the cafeteria, we kept the restrooms within that area, they don't have to leave. There is a family-style restroom, and then the corridor for where the student drop-off is with a covered canopy, and they could come in to either the gym or the cafeteria. We are providing some high windows along there under the canopy, which I'll show you in an elevation here shortly. The kitchen is 2 serving lines, and then it has the scullery and then the lineup that the district likes for all of their kitchen, and also the support stuff, the freezer cooler and the service service area in the back. On the renovation side, we're relocating the secure transaction to the other side, and we're consuming the old cafeteria and the kitchen with required pieces that be the programmatic stuff for admin. When we finish that renovation, the old admin is going to be turned into a collaborative space that the campus can use for large gatherings. Again, a courtyard, we're going to try to dress that up. We do have some big trees in there, and currently that surface, over time has started to move, so it does need to be addressed. And again, we're going to add landscape there. We're not going to take it's an ash tree. It's going to stay in place as is. On the elevation, this is the overall view. This is the existing portion of the school, and then the grayed area would actually be the addition part. Trying to match this existing brick, when we do that, we decided we would do panels and get as close as we could and do a basket weave pattern that would be underneath the canopy, and then we would provide light under there, windows to that. This gives us an opportunity to introduce a new brick and some banding, which I'll show in some enlargements here in a second. So we can start to add a little bit of color to that. Again, so it's gray value. We're not suggesting grays. We'll come back at the appropriate time with colors. But again, the basket weave, this is like an enlargement right in this area where we'd have some brick coursing and then an ability to add some different colors. We'd have a new field brick, and then that basket weave would try to match that existing brick the best we can. 1971 brick. It's going to be kind of hard to do. Next slide. And then this kind of gives you an aerial view. All of this over here is the existing campus, and then we have plaster up high and introducing some color to help move your eye. Any questions?
Comments, questions?
Those colorful pillars will be gone?
Excuse me?
The pillars of color will be gone?
They're staying, but we'll come back with the balance or the new stuff and share colors for your input and approval.
Comments from the building committee, Simons?
We liked it. We talked about it. We liked it. We would like to recommend approval.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. I'm sorry, I have just one quick question. Keep having one quick question.
Yes, sir.
I didn't realize, you said the floodplain runs where again?
Can you go back to one of the site plans, please?
It's in parking lot? So it's not in the back where the park is also, the city park? Is that also?
There's drainage easements along 3 sides,
That's what I
and then the
thought.
creek is on the east side. But there is a floodplain that goes, that part of the existing gym is in and through that parking. So, yeah, so it roughly is like right there.
Okay, but not any,
No, that's the reason when we did the master plan. that
I mean further even up where the city park is and all
There,
that. That's,
currently, no, sir,
Okay.
it comes up to the edge.
Okay.
And it actually comes up the street a little bit as well.
Okay.
Sasamota Creek, which goes here and goes all the way to Ross.
okay.
Part of Ross is in the floodplain and
Didn't know that.
healed, and it's a small area. But
Okay.
it continues up here.
Okay.
Until they improve the creek,
Right,
get bigger capacity, then those floodplains will probably decrease.
okay, good,
We've
thank
had
you.
a conversation with the city about that as well. But
Okay.
the plan in this bond, their bond, doesn't include any major work.
Okay.
That's
good.
why it spills over to our property here.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Freeman?
Yeah, just a comment. Back to colors, and I know this is not a color thing, but at some point in time, when I know we mentioned gray, and but there's been this perception that there's some colors that we don't look at or approve. Leroy, can we have that discussion again sometime at building committee? Because I think we need to revisit that discussion so that our architects aren't restrained, from bringing different colors to the board.
We could have that conversation. I can also tell you that we've opened up the palette in the last 4 or 5 years, where we have a tremendous
Sure.
amount of different colors, including grays. And I know Don's been here doing it for 30-some odd years with Northside, and grays was a big no-no.
Well, I just want to have that discussion. Thank you.
We have gray at Taft.
Yep, gray and tan. Included in that.
All right, any other comments, questions? We have a motion and a second. All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the schematic design for Spartas Elementary signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any noes? All right, motion carries. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, now we go to Colonies North.
Okay, so we've got a situation at Colonies North that we want to share with you. The presentation and the discussions were held at Building Committee, and Building Committee suggested that we bring it to the full board so we can understand the bigger challenge that we have at that particular school, but also opportunities to remedy and resolve those issues there at Colonies North. So I'll start off with kind of giving you an idea. I have four bullet points here for you: the purpose, the background, options, and next steps. So here's Colony North has experienced foundational differential movement. All that really means is we have we have so many parts of a building up there that were built at different times of the year, of years, that actually has started to move. And that's not unusual, but they usually move very, very small amounts. And so given that the 22 bond program provided for a gym, cafeteria, and a classroom replacement, there may be opportunity for us to remedy that with the funds that are available for under the 22 bond. The purpose of this presentation is to discuss the situation, seek input from the board members, and then look at next steps. The Building Committee has reviewed the situation and recommended that it come to full board. Next slide. So let's just refresher here. 22 bond provided for, when we looked at the master plan, there were various types of objectives that we wanted to fulfill or at least address through a master plan over time. Traffic, security, parking, a small independent gym, you just saw one in the presentation a few minutes ago, campus identity, aging buildings, obviously, and design standard deficiencies. So that was the fine points of the 22 bond and master plan. When we looked at what we have opportunities to be able to move forward with in the 22 bond, we just started talking about the most immediate impacts. Traffic, and I know I've been there many, many times. trying to help out with traffic and trying to see if there's a circulation patterns. But it's a very compressed site, very, very small site. Undersized gymnasium, you saw the little metal gyms that we have. They're woefully undersized, and we have a multitude of those. And part of our initiative over time is to remedy that by actually getting rid of them and building the same models we have at the newer schools. Aging buildings and certainly security. So therefore, based on that, the 22 bond provided for a gym and a cafeteria and some classroom replacements on that campus. As it was selected as phase one of a multiple phase, as we have done in the past with other facilities, that we look at it for subsequent capital improvement programs or bond programs coming in the future. Staff recommended the gym, the cafeteria, placement to the CBAC prior to the bond program, was vetted through the big, the large advisory committee, and then the Board of Trustees ultimately. So that's how it was selected. That's where we've been. So let me show you kind of an idea of what we're talking about here. This is the site. This is Colony Drive, Northampton. This is the front of the school. The little gymnasium that we've been talking about is in the back over there, out by Lonesome. Here's the main classroom wings, and they go this way. Cafeteria is there, and the library is in the middle. It's flanked by 2 courtyards. Okay, next slide. Here's an important slide that shows you the age of the facility. So well over 50 years old in some of these, or approaching 50 years. We have 76. The green is primarily the 66 to the 76, 66 to 76, right? And then we had 91 elements that were actually added. And so you can see it's a mixture. And this is when I say parts of buildings, every building was built separate. So that means there's joints in between them, right? So you have to traverse those internally. Next slide. And what we did in the bond program is, as we started pushing it out, so to speak, we settled on the idea. This is a complete build-up of the master plan. But in the bond program, what was included is this piece back here: gymnasium, cafeteria, and some classroom buildings in the back. And then over time, we would start moving forward to the front of the building and to start removing buildings and replacing them with new facilities, so to speak. So here's the situation that we find ourselves in at this particular point in time. So there's an area between 2 1976 buildings that has had considerable amount of movement. And it's right there. So this is the front entry. Here's your administration. You walk in there and you go to these hallways. Please remember, this was an open school many, many moons ago. So everything was breezeways, external breezeways, and they got enclosed over time. And as buildings started to be built, they tried to push those together as best as they possibly can. So the maintenance department has installed covers on these already at least 2 or 3 times, because the movement is starting to become more drastic. When we were doing the bond program, when we were thinking about the bond program, I know I visited this campus, and the movement between some of these buildings was very, very little. It was not substantial. Now we're talking in excess of 2 inches. So in about a 2 to 3 year period, it has moved considerably. Now it's safe. The first thing we do when we get a concern from a principal or a campus administrator that calls us and says, hey, something's happening with my building, it's cracking, so we send in a structural engineer immediately. Within 24 hours, they do an assessment, determine whether the building is safe to occupy, and in this case, it is. The thing with this is it's moving together. So it's not breaking apart, it's just moving together. It is expected, based on our best guess, is that this settling is not going to remedy itself. It's going to either continue or stay pretty stagnant for another 2 or 3 years, and then it continue to move again. So that's the dilemma that we find ourselves in with this particular building. And let me show you some graphic representation pictures of what we're talking about. If you notice, this line used to be all one line. This is one part of a building here. This is the other part of the building there. So it's actually shifted down. Here's the transitional piece that we've been talking about, but a better view is this. You can see how far it's actually moved. We've already repaired this twice and got more of a ramp looking platform in there so that we can mitigate and make a smooth transition. As you can see, these 2 brick lines, that brick line, the mortar line, and this one, they used to be right at the same level, right about there. It's moved down. So this is what the situation is at Colonies North at this point in time, and it just seems like it got progressively worse. So potential causes, and we've talked to structural engineers, geotechnical engineers, and various other people in the field. And what they tell us, basically, we have two foundation systems that are working not necessarily with each other, and so potentially they have a potential of movement. So again, they're still intact, but they're moving separately. Weather-related, the heat and the dryness, as you well know, if you go to my neighborhood, there were 5 breaks just this weekend. It is creating havoc down at the pipes and things that are under the ground. Well, it's not any different that you have in some of these buildings that tend to move and contract and expand with the soils, especially the bad soils that we have around in and around San Antonio. And then water and substrates, usually the telling sign. We don't know that we have water, but there may be some water there. And that expands, pushes up, or it dries and it pushes down, or drops down, so to speak. So here's some of the options, and we've talked about this building committee, and this is what we want to share with you today and have a discussion. And that is, option 1 would be change the sequence of the 2022 bond program as it was publicized to the voters. So remember, it was a gym, a cafeteria, and a classroom. And one of the options we have is to change it to a classroom and administration, which is in the front part of the building, of the campus, okay? Defer the 22 bond to the end of the bond program and propose in the next bond program to redo the entire school and just get it all done at one time. Obviously, that's something that we have done at least one time in the last 10 or 15 years. We push things to the end of the bond program, and then we go to the next bond program and then make it whole, so to speak, or do more. Or, like Dr. Kraft one told me, he says, rip the Band-Aid and let's go replace the school, which is probably the right thing to do, but obviously cost is becoming a potential challenge with that. So our next steps, and this is again suggestions, and then we can open it up for discussion, is given that we publicize in the 22 bond program that these 3 elements were going to be replaced, then let's look at the discussion with various entities, organizations, to be able to give us some more input. We have a CBAC that's very active, and they gave us a lot of input even before we started with a bond program for 22. They continue to give us advice during the course of a bond. And so take it to them and ask them what their thoughts are. Obviously, have a conversation with the campus, because remember, we did presentations at the campuses as well while we were doing the informational sessions for the 22 bond, and then communicate out to the community as well. So given then that the voters were told we wanted to do we suggested a gym, cafeteria, classroom, but given the circumstances, maybe we can change it. The present findings to the building committee for review, and then obviously to the board of trustees for final approval. So again, I know I crunched a lot of stuff in my presentation here, but we wanted to bring that. Dr. Kraft, you may have some commentary as well.
Yes, sir. So as you can see, this is a little bit of a complicated challenging issue for us, and I know that myself included, in our conversation at the building committee was, okay, well, the 2022 bond was passed on the premise of we were going to phase this project and take care of some, like I say, some classroom and, or excuse me, cafeteria, gymnasium needs first. So this would definitely potentially be a real change in the scope of the bond. Now, again, we believe that it, in checking with council, it would still meet the parameters of the original bond that the community and voters passed. But we would obviously want to do our due diligence in not only garnering feedback from our Citizen Bond Advisory Committee, but really the community at large. One of the things that we'd like to do, talking about the CBAC committee, is we'd like to actually host a meeting at the campus to allow the individual members to actually see what we're talking about. Because it's one thing to look at the photographs, it's another actually to lay eyes on it and see the challenge before us, because it is a challenge, and I think it is going to have to be addressed probably sooner than later in some form or fashion. And so how we go about that strategically, but then also with the long game in mind, I think we're going to need, like I say, some feedback, input, and obviously community engagement and involvement. And so, like I say, we wanted to bring this this evening to the full board after having the conversation with the building committee for feedback this evening, but then also help deciphering how we need to move forward.
Trustee Saldana?
We spend a lot of time at building committee going over this because quite frankly, our biggest concern, or at least Gerald and I think the other two also agree, we told the voters one thing. And now if we change it, the voters are gonna say, but that's not what you told us you were gonna do. On the other hand, we have a situation where we've got to make a decision. Do we spend more money on something that may eventually not work? And then we have to spend money again? We went through so many scenarios, and finally, Dr. Kraft was the one that spoke up and said, or we build a brand new school. Quite frankly, that would be what I think we should do, is build a brand new school, because we've added so many pieces already. And then we're gonna add another piece, whether it's the front of the school and we fix what's wrong right now, or we're gonna add towards the back. But we're still adding to this old campus. But I also believe we've got to go to the community. We have to have a community meeting. We have to meet with the families in that neighborhood, because they're thinking they're getting a new gym and a new cafeteria. And we owe them the opportunity to tell us, okay, we understand that when the bond passed, we didn't know this situation was happening. And so now that we know, we'll agree to let you move it forward or build a new school. I mean, we have so many options right now that we've got to really meet with our community and try to get them to help us make a final decision.
And just real quickly, perfect world, utopian world, I do believe that just raising the building and being able to build a new one would take care of a lot of challenges. And essentially, with the master plan, the facility will be rebuilt. And with construction escalation that we're still seeing, even though it's starting to slow down, I think that it could potentially even be, for the long term, some cost savings. Now, that being said, part of the challenge is going to be, how do we go about that phasing? How do we displace students while this construction project is underway? And then, of course, the additional cost. And so I think this is a project, to Ms. Saldana's point, that we're going to have to really roll up our sleeves and think probably outside of the box as to how we go about this if we're going to particularly detour from the original plan. But I do think that it's going to need to be a collaborative effort, that we're going to need to engage in the dialogue, like I say, preferably at the campus with the CBAC and the campus and the community.
Trustee Hall?
I think the other consideration, I know we're talking about bricks and mortar, but the kids that are in Colonies North represent 17, at sometimes up to 20-something different nations, and are recent immigrants. And I just want us to remember that uprooting kids and taking them to another facility is a challenge in itself, and can, add stress and trauma to already negative experiences for a lot of the kiddos. And we've worked so hard to provide stability and consistency in that neighborhood and at that school. So totally removing them, I mean, somehow, I know we would get community feedback, but at the same time, I just want us to remember, the school population, I guess,
And
and the families.
that's an excellent point. We did. It's actually home to approximately 250 of our newcomer students, so it's actually one of our larger newcomer programs, and we would definitely want to be sensitive, but also try to be accommodating, particularly to our students that they are very, very vulnerable, obviously, for some
The good word.
very evident reasons. And so we want to keep that at the forefront of our decision-making and recommendations that we bring back.
Trustee Lopez?
Thank you. Leroy, Dr. Kraft, can you tell me what's the current student population at that campus right now? Do we know?
500, 608? I think it's 608.
Students. Okay.
So just looking at the three surrounding adjacent school district zones, we'd have to get really creative. There's obviously not a single campus that we could just move the entire student population. So, again, I think it would serve us well to do our due diligence in exploring it as an option, but don't know that that's necessarily the option. It's just this is a pretty difficult, challenging, complicated project that we're going to have to work through. And we just need a little bit more runway so that we're making some really calculated, strategic decisions, I think, with this one, and bringing those back for recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Next question, Leroy. What is our timeline on this? When do we have to have a decision, or when does the public have to make a decision on this? Because we talk about cost. What is the timeline factor on that?
When we looked at the timing of these of all the bond program projects, this was supposed to be done a year to 2 years from now. Given the fact that we are experiencing that differential settlement, we moved it up to now, which means that if we were to follow the schedule, we would have schematics in about a month or 2 months, and then we would go right into summer to start construction. That would be it. Now, that's if we follow what was there in the bond program, and even if we change it to move the project from the back of the school, cafeteria, gym, classrooms, to the front, it would still follow the same schedule, but that's only a portion of it. So we would literally start design work here quickly and get it ready for school for summer so we can tear things down. That's when we want to tear things down.
That's if, and that's if, let's say the public says, hey, yeah, you know what, this is important. We go through all our processes. Yeah, go ahead. So we'd still be able to do it by summer, right?
Well, we'll do the tear down by summer because that's what we call the dirty work, and it shakes the earth over there. So we want to take that front building completely out in the front parking lot. And we've studied that. I know Jeff here? Jeff, he wanted a challenge, so we gave him this project. So Jeff with Huckabee is here, and he gave us a small presentation of what it would look like. Building committee, but we said, time out, let's talk to the full board about the bigger picture, and then determine what direction we want to go.
Okay, good. So to Corinne's, comments, I am of the belief that we let the public decide what they want to do with it. They approved what they approved in the bond. They said, yeah, we want to go ahead and go with this. I say, let's let them make that decision. Allow the Citizens Bond Advisory Committee to hear the comments from the public and let them, see that as well. I mean, visit the campus and then hear the public as well as what their comments are and stuff like that as well. I would also like to see how many meetings would we anticipate having for the public to be able to come in and hear presentations, because schedules can vary. Some parents may not be able to make it at a 6 o'clock on Tuesday, maybe Thursday. I mean, how many meetings would we anticipate having?
Not very many.
Not very many.
What I would, we follow the same model when we're going out for the informational sessions, like for the 22 bond. We have like 2 or 3 meetings at a campus. One is for the teachers, and we tell them what we intend to do and get their input. And then we have one in front of a PTA or a function. That's normally what we've done in the past. And that is when we have the parents there and things of that nature. And that's just the way that we've done in the past. This may follow a slightly different model, where we just have a community meeting just for the purpose of this discussion.
So
there's a lot of options. If we can also communicate verbally, or we can communicate in writing to them as well. Send them letters and things of that nature. So there's a multitude of different mechanisms we could use.
But first and foremost, we'd like to put this before the Citizen Bond Advisory Committee. And of course, that's a meeting that's open to the public.
Right.
We'd really like to, seeing that they've been so involved with this entire bond proposal and program, that we'd really like to put it before them first and then start communicating, especially once we have more of a solidified recommendation that we feel like that will be sufficient, we'll be able to bring to the board.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm okay with that. I'm good with the process. I just want to make sure that, one, the public has plenty of opportunities to be a part of the decision-making, whether that's either through, notifying, first of all, too, is going to be key. How many times do we plan on notifying them, right? And what methods do we plan on using? Newsletter, social media, all those things. I'd like to see a plan of something like that developed, and so that way we get the most people involved in this is an important decision, and they're going to have to make that. So that's key. But I'm in support of providing the CBAC committee the opportunity to look at it, and then let's let the public decide. Because what I don't want is, for me, my concern is we've got we're looking at another bond maybe potentially. We've got other campuses that may be similar to this or worse or whatever. We've got to make sure we can pass that bond in the future. So I'd hate for that to be a perception that we're doing something underhandedly. So the more we can be public with the opportunity for the citizens to be a part of that and understand what we're doing, I'm in supportive of this. So.
And trustees, that's why we wanted to bring it to the whole board, because we know that this decision is going to require input, lots of input. We are very much in favor of the district bond committee advising us, telling us, but we don't want just Colonies North community to have input. We want the Northside community to understand why we're having to possibly make a change in the bond that we passed, because we don't want them to think that we're doing anything underhanded. So we don't want it to just be the Colonies North community. It has to be our whole community that knows that we're in a dilemma right now. And so we wanted to bring it to all of you so that you could understand that we've got to start thinking possibly outside the box and see how we're going to vote eventually, because eventually it's going to come back here to see what we're going to do with it. But Leroy, thank you. I know that you all will guide us into meetings and trying to set everything up, but that's one of the reasons why I don't think we can give a timeline right now, because you've got to meet with that committee, and I don't know whether even the trustees should be at that committee. I think that committee should meet possibly without us so that they can feel comfortable saying whatever they want, and then set up another meeting or whatever you all think. But this is all of us that eventually will have to make a decision.
Trustee Freeman, I know we got a couple other trustees want to make comments.
Thank you.
I got you.
Thank you, Mr. Blunt. I want us to be very clear, though, as we talk about the process that we're going to use to help us make this decision. I think the first thing, I think I've heard some agreement on going to the CBAC and asking for their opinion. I want to be careful with what we communicate to the public. Unless we're going to go out and ask them to vote, it's not a public decision. We're asking for the public input from my perspective. We need to ask for their public input, but the decision rests with this board, unless we decide to completely go out for another school, and we're talking a whole different, or we're talking different amounts of money. But I just want to be clear as to how we communicate that.
All right, Trustee Duran?
So just as a follow-up question, my experience serving on the bond committee, I understand the verbiage is really important when we set these bonds up. Is there anything we could have stated differently to prepare? Because I know after the pandemic, costs have gone up, modified materials, we've had to make modifications in building things. So what could we have done differently, if anything?
Good question. I know that one of the cornerstones of Northside when it comes to public information and what we give out to the public is to tell them basically, we're going to do this, but more importantly, we're going to do this, this, and this, which is very specific. And I remember John Folks told me, he says, Leroy, we don't put generalities in there. We're going to build a school somewhere over there. Or we're going to do this to 5 elementary schools, because that's probably the way to do it. If we're talking about, peeling back and moving forward. But our pride has always been, at Colonies North, we're going to do this and this. At Glen Oaks, we're going to do this and this. At Marshall, we're going to do this and this. And we summarize that, believe it or not, because there's a lot more detail. We said replace classrooms, put a magnet, things of that nature. So in retrospect, we could have pulled back and just say, we're going to do some improvement at Colonies North and leave it at that. But our MO is, we need to tell them what we're talking about. Because then we can be accused, and of course,
Did the best we could.
some of you know what happened in the 95, that the only bond program that failed is, there was, and Dave Gannon could probably give the history lesson on that one, where we said we want to do this and we didn't do it, or it was so vague that nobody knew what was going on. And so it was left to a lot of interpretation.
Very good. And then the other question I have, like, if we were to consider a rebuild, could it be in phases, like summer 1, summer 2, and then I just don't see 20 to 30 portables to fit the needs of that community.
We can phase it. There is ways to be able to, and I've done that before in other school districts, where you just take one phase and you just we tear the front of it, we do that one, and then we move back.
Okay.
The thing is that it's in a life school, and that gets us nervous because we're so close to each other, right? Now, the architect proposed that we pull the front portion of the building further away from the existing campus. But yes, it can be phased in over that. It could be a 2-year or a 3-year project.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So yes, it can be done.
Trustee Hall?
And there's, this is a different question, but so there's plenty of land still, right, for portables. There's still a lot of acreage.
We would take up the play fields.
Yeah.
Which we've done in the past, limited, but we've done that in the past.
So there would not be any playground or?
Hardly. Very, very challenging.
Something else to think about, like
Yeah,
if we
and-
did
and,
it in phases.
When we start talking about what opportunities there are, we'll get with the architect and we'll start talking about phasing. It could be we do the front and maybe we do the next section now or whatever. But like Dr. Kraft says, displacing over 600 kids, it's always challenging for us. We've done it in small pieces, even in high schools. Member homes, we had 40 portables on that band praca. It was challenging for the campus. So it can be done. It's just got to think it all the way through.
And so if we stuck with what we originally had planned for the school, if we just stuck with that, what is the worst scenario? What is the worst case scenario?
Wow. I've never really thought about that in those terms, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
Worst case scenario is that building continues to move and eventually it'll crack. And then we're going to have a serious,
we'll
that's the
start having
worst of them.
Plumbing issues, we'll have doors, windows.
So I think that's part of what can be shared too, in specificities, and that would help with understanding and support at the same time.
See, right now, it's fortunate the building's moving together. So even if it does move, we don't have sticking doors, we don't have the, now the roof up there, we've had to go to repair it because it's shifting. But those are kinds of things that, the worst case scenario is the slab that just breaks in half or a portion of it.
Okay.
And then,
All right, thanks.
Yeah, and I was just going to agree with Trustee Hall was, I think the safety aspect, or at least the risk part of that, is got to be part of the story too. Maybe a little bit more subjectivity to it, but still, I think that's definitely a big part of it.
Yeah,
So
that's a great point. I mean, life safety has to be at the very, very.
That's why we're bringing it forward, is because we're nervous. In facilities, if you ask me, I'm a little bit nervous that it will sustain for another, because we could wait for a whole bond cycle and go to the next bond, but will it sustain itself over that period of time? There's nobody will tell us that that's going to happen.
Yeah, see, the question is, can you quantify that to some degree?
It would be challenging.
Yeah.
We'd have to have the engineers, and they're going to do an entire analysis. And it would be a little bit challenging, but they.
The other question I had, and may or may not relate, let me know. the challenges we had at Rayburn and the decisions, we sort of had to go through, is this sort of, what's the difference between how we sort of?
It's
went through that
similar,
process?
except that building, Rayburn was in pieces, so we could take one piece and replace it, take another piece and replace it. And so we did that for the last 4 or 5 bond programs. This is cohesive, and again, when we talk about the layout of a facility, Mr. Blunt, our goal has always been a unified campus so kids don't have to go outside.
Right.
But we could put it back the way it is in pieces.
Right.
And maybe with a more robust structural system, but I'm not sure that would get us to where we
And I'll just get more from a,
Sure.
with you on that, more from a process standpoint. We had to go through some decisions there. Do we go to the community? What do we do? I don't know if we
Yeah.
ever went to, we didn't go to the community in that case, et cetera, but, we still went through some of that thought, the same thing we're talking about now.
Right.
We finally do there. Okay. So I wasn't sure if there's anything learned there. Last one, I was gonna say, that I think the one thing to remember on the comments on the specifics, the other thing that was real critical that we realized in Northside over the years, from our bond perspective, our community actually sort of demanded that we provide those specifics. Because we weren't gonna, if you didn't tell me what you're gonna get, then why I'm gonna come out and support and some other things, and it gave us a good picture of we're taking care of things. So specifics that we were putting in, that was
Yeah.
intentional, and we learned that through the years of working the bonds, especially when we're doing them every 3 years. So I just wanted to add that part. Okay. And Trustee Freeman, I'm sorry.
Yeah, just one more. We touched on it with the comment about safety. What we did talk about too, you have sticking doors. That's another issue. I mean, at home, if I have a sticking door, then maybe I leave it cracked a little bit. But in a school setting, when you have a lockdown or something like that, that becomes a situation that you have to deal with.
Okay, so this is a discussion, but did we end up where you needed to be, or do y'all have enough? Y'all got it.
I believe so. I mean, the reality is this: we're going to prepare to roll our sleeves up. We're going to try to really work communication. We're going to try to bring forward a recommendation with a solution. And the last thing we want to do is overpromise and underdeliver. Not only to you as trustees, but also to our community that graciously supported the passage of the bond. And so sometimes these challenges are created, and we'll go to work to put together a plan to try to best solve it. And life safety will be at the, like I say, very forefront of any recommendations we bring back.
And Trustee Harrell?
Well, Bobby, and thank you for that. Bobby, you just reminded me when I was at Rayburn and we imploded the center and it was happening in phases, there were 3 or 4 churches around there that we actually had different, our kids could walk to, or they would have a bus. I mean, they were middle school kids. But there is a church right down the street from Colonies North, Colonial Hills, that has classrooms. Maybe we involve partners is another way of looking at not bringing in a lot of portables, but still having a place to play or something like that. But just think bigger than our plot of land too. So,
Yeah.
thanks.
Good point, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. So now we switch over to back to our business and finance, our budget amendment number 3. Y'all decide.
All right. Well, this is the final amendment to the 22-23 budget amendment number 3. We are recommending the final amended budget show a deficit of $19.9 million in the general fund. Again, down from the original 60, budget amendment number 2 brought it down to 32. So we're now at 19. Certainly, interest income helped during the year with interest rates continuing to be high, as well as the additional students that we recognized from 93,000 to 94,200, and making some adjustments also to expenditures. So we are recommending the general fund budget amendment number 3, as well as the child nutrition amended budget, which shows an increase to their fund balance of $2.9 million, and the debt service fund showing a reduction in fund balance of $13 million, which was planned.
Okay. Any comments or questions? Did this one go to the Finance Committee already? The ones we're going to go through?
Yeah, I believe it did, right?
Yes.
Back in,
Got everybody looking.
Yeah, it's
I don't
it's
remember.
it's
It was a
it's
while- it's been so
budget,
much.
last year's budget that we had a finance committee meeting, so we did at the finance committee talk about the transfer out, if you recall, about the technology. For those board members that have been on the board for a while, back in 2015 and then in 18, there was a transfer out from the general fund to the technology deployment fund, which was at the time servicing the one-to-one devices for our students, and we did talk about that. That is included in budget amendment number 3, so another transfer out to continue that practice currently of the one-to-one initiatives.
Yep. No, that's right. We did talk
Yes.
about that because I remember that, so I'm sorry, just been vague.
No, that's okay. I forgot too. Yeah, it's been a while.
So yes, we did discuss this in finance, and so I recommend that we approve it as recommended by staff.
All right, is there a second? Second. All right, motion second, any further discussion? All right. Move to second, that we approve budget amendment number 3, as discussed. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, state nay. Okay, motion carries. All right, commitment of fund balance resolution.
Yes, sir. In the same vein, every year we ask the board to commit, at least recently, just one fund balance, and we call it instructional continuity. Only the board can commit certain fund balances. In this case, we're asking the board to commit $200 million of general fund balance in a category called instructional continuity. The thought is that we are going to use this in the event that, well, for instance, if we were ever to be cut by the legislature funding, as we did back in 2010-11, we could tap into this to mitigate the impact to instructional services. But a year from now, we will no longer have ESSER funds, and during this next year, starting September 1, we'll be discussing what expenses from ESSER are going to be discussed to be included in next year's general fund 24-25. As you see, the current budget that the board's going to consider for adoption later already has a deficit. Unless we get an increase in the basic allotment, which is a possibility if the legislature meets in October and increases it by some dollar amount. But we have some expenses that are being bandied about that are asked to be considered to be put into the general fund. If the superintendent wants to entertain that, then that's what that instructional continuity is also there for, to help us ease into it. Some of you may have heard this fiscal cliff that other districts are facing because they put so much normal general fund expenditures into ESSER, and then when ESSER runs out, all of that has to come slamming back into the general fund. Well, we didn't do that. We looked at some expenses that we did cover with ESSER, pre-K being probably the biggest one, Learning Tree, but other things that were paid solely by ESSER funds over the last 3 years. This last year, 23-24, we have to have those serious discussions about what's coming into the general fund. Perhaps this instructional continuity, which is going down from $215 million to $200 million, we can use that to leverage that to ease into the next year's budget. So.
Okay, and again, this one is, again, a commitment of the $200 million.
Yes, sir.
And again, it's in the attachment is a resolution which would define that. So is there a motion or comment from our finance committee first?
Yeah, I move that we approve the resolution for the Northside, for the school board for the fund balance commitment.
All right.
As recommended by staff.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Moved and second. Any further discussion? Moved and second that we approve the commitment of the fund balance resolution as presented by staff. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Okay. Motion carries. All right. Agreement for the purchase of attendance credits.
Yes, sir. As we've discussed a few times, this is to approve an agreement by the board for us to purchase attendance credits should we have excess entitlement, which we won't, but again, we have to go through this process. This resolution then gives the contractual authority to the superintendent to sign this contract. But again, we will not have excess entitlement during 23-24. We just have to go through the motions.
Okay. Comments, questions? All right, Joe, you want to handle that one too? Any comments on that one? Purchase of attendance credits?
Yes, I move that we approve as recommended by staff.
All right. Is there? All right. Moved to second. Any further discussion? Move to second that we approve the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Motion carries. All right, next we've got the resolution on the defeasance.
Yes, sir. So every year since 2016, we have brought before the board a defeasance resolution that allows us to defease, pay off upcoming debt during the 23-24 year. In this case, we've identified two obligations, the 2014A as well as the 2019 variable rate debt obligations. And what we'd like to do is have the board approve us paying off $79,775,000 to pay down both of those at that level.
Good. This is very positive news. So
Yes, it is, yeah.
very positive news.
And as I said, with this amount, we would have paid off close to $300 million since 2016-17.
Okay. Finance Committee, any comments, questions on this one, or a motion?
No, I think this is great. This is positive news. So I move that we approve the resolution to pay off bond debt for 2023-2024, as recommended by staff.
All right. Is there a second? All right, moved to second. Any discussion? If not, it's been moved to second that we approve the defeasance resolution to pay off the bond debt 23-24 as presented by staff. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Good, motion carries. All right, now we get to the adoption of the 23-24 budget.
Yes, sir. The reason for the season, we are, again, we've talked about it during the hearing. We're recommending the three budgets for the board to consider for approval, which does include all the things we've talked about since April, the G&I packages, the 3% raise, so on and so forth. It's all included in here.
All right, Finance Committee, anything on our adoption of the 23-24 budget?
Yes, I move that we approve the proposed 2023-2024 budget for the general fund as recommended by staff.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. The move to second, any further discussion? Move to second that we approve the 2023-2024 budget as presented by staff. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Good. All right, motion carries. And last one in this area, the consideration and approval of the ordinance.
Yes, sir. In order to fund both the general fund and the debt service, we are asking the board to consider adopting a total tax rate of 1.0117, comprised of 0.6762 for the maintenance and operations, or the M&O, and 0.3355 for the interest and sinking fund, which is used to pay back our debt as well as to cover the defeasance that the board also just approved.
All right, any comments from the Finance Committee? Or my motion?
Yeah. I move that the property tax rate be set at 1.0117 on each $100 of taxable value of property, comprised of a rate of 0.6762 for maintenance and operations and 0.3355 for interest and sinking, and that the order presented be finally passed and adopted.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, and we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, it's been moved and seconded that we, as stated by Trustee Lopez, I won't read the whole statement again, but verbally stated for the record. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Great. Okay, motion carried. And just for everybody, I know we went through this area rather fast, but believe me, this has been a rather in-depth process. It began actually probably before April that we've had these discussions, so it's, we finally reached that peak. A lot of meetings, a lot of discussions, and a lot of work by not only our finance but other committees. So I'm grateful to our staff, without a doubt, grateful to our leadership for our finance committee, and grateful to our superintendent and everybody else. This is a biggie for us, okay? All 6 of these. All right, so now we'll transition over to our human resources area. And this is consideration of additional police officer allocations.
Yes, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, as you are all aware, we have been closely analyzing the new legislation in and around armed security officers, and particularly outlined in House Bill 3. And so this evening, we'd like to propose an additional 20 allocations, officer units to help us, in essence, come closer to complying with House Bill 3 and the provision of armed security officers across all of our campuses. As you're aware, we will have officers at all of our secondary campuses again. And again, this is not a new practice. We've been very fortunate to have our own police department providing officers at our secondary campuses. But we've worked really diligently, and again, Chief Carnes has worked hard with his officers to create a rotation as we get ready to start the school year, and these additional allocations will really help us provide just that much more adequate coverage. And of course, upon approval, we'll post the positions and begin the hiring process. I know that one of the questions is in regards to the due cause or due cause exception. We're still analyzing. I mean, again, we know and recognize that very, very few districts of the 1,200 plus school districts are going to be in 100% compliance as we start the school year. And so ideally we would love to get there, but we're going to take this one step at a time. Like I say, these additional allocations will definitely be a step in the right direction. So with that being said, my stunt double, Ben Muir. What can you
I
add?
have much else to say. So just a couple of things, and I know on the called board meeting on August the 8th, I know Dr. Kraft talked about that. So a couple things since then. We've lowered vacancies, so we're down to 11. We were at 15, so we're down to 11, which is good. And then the second piece, and Chief is here too, we are going to bring back some retired police officers that used to work for us, and right now we're at 8. Hopefully by tomorrow we'll be at 9, and we may look at some more, but they're going to come back on a part-time basis and really help on those rotations at our elementary schools. So in the meantime, while we try to fill the full-time positions, we at least have a temporary Band-Aid for to have our rehired north side police officers coming back. So.
All right, Trustee Lopez?
Thank you. One question about the retire-rehire. I know there was a question that was centered around positions. Were we able to look at that? Were there considerations about retire-rehire for other positions available under different job titles?
Yes, sir. In fact, like I say, I believe we've hired or rehired 49 retirees, particularly in critical needs shortage areas.
Okay.
I know that we've, rehired several bus drivers that were retirees, and so as we're seeing and working to fill these critical need areas, it's absolutely an option that we're implementing.
Good. Okay, no, I just wanted to make sure. I had heard something about that, so I wasn't sure.
Which I think having this option for our police force, especially with our elementary schools, is going to be extremely helpful during this time.
Well, thank you very much, Ben. I appreciate that. Dr. Kraft, thanks for your leadership on that as well, so thank you.
Trustee Harrell?
Just real quick, you mentioned that part-time will be available for the police officers. Are we also considering part-time for other positions?
So we've looked at it, we've talked about it. We're not there at this point, but it's in discussion.
Okay.
Job sharing,
Because I'm thinking
part-time.
there's a lot of discussion right now, particularly when the SA report article came out about the 800, and we rehire lots of different positions. Just it's starting talk about part-time. Oh, you mean I can come back? I'm retired, but could I do it part-time?
Yeah, so there are some definite TRS regulations that we'll have to be very cognizant of, obviously. But we've talked about the idea of job sharing and potentially partnering up. At the secondary level, I believe there have been some part-time positions that have been filled specifically for kind of a specialty type area. So it's an option that we're definitely open to. There's some nuances and some challenges associated that we just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful of and working through. So
Love it. Thank you. Good news.
Any other comments or questions from the board?
Just one.
Go ahead, Trustee Sadai.
Just out of curiosity, did we get any veterans come and apply after we had a job fair where there were a lot of veterans there?
We have one teacher. We have one teacher that's going to get into a program, and their name's been sent out, so hopefully they'll be hired. We've had a couple for substitutes and some interest on a secretarial position and a couple IA positions. So we did get a little bit of traction out of that, correct?
Thank you.
All right, Trustee Hall?
Sorry, I have one more question. So if the other, and this is just one singular person asking me this question, so not a whole lot, but they already have a bachelor's and a master's, and they want to be a teacher. Who which we now would like them to be, because they can go
Yes.
through alternative certification. Can they teach while they're getting their alternative certification? So do they just call HR and say that? So there's no,
It's the beauty of being a district of innovation.
okay.
We play that to our advantage now, and we've hired quite a few that are in that same situation. So we'll counsel them, we'll talk with them, we'll look at transcripts, we'll tell them just by our eyeballs to say, yep, they'll probably certify you in math, maybe in English, maybe in social studies. And then we encourage them to reach out to a program. And in the meantime, we're sending their names out to where we have vacancies.
And we can provide some updates and some information in regards to what that will look like, especially from a
Look at our
probationary
website, 'cause
emergency.
she did say she looked,
We-
and I said, I know, but I don't know if you can just start right away, which, okay. So I'll just have her contact HR.
Yes.
So the other question I had came out, about is a lot of the students that I teach are not passing necessarily their PPR, and so they're going to go teach charter, and they're not going to go and retake. But we're saying, what? Is there a way we can capture
The other
them and
advantage
say-
of being a DOI district
Keep going, keep
is,
going.
yes, we have made exceptions to those, and we will have them come in and sign addendums, and we will put them in the classroom, and we will require them to pass that test by the end of the school year.
Okay, we'll give them support. Can-
Yes, and of course, give support.
Yeah, and have y'all met with UTSA? Do they know that?
I'm not sure if UTSA knows that, but the candidates that we've hired know that.
I'm just wondering how to get the word out before they make a decision. But anyway, I'll. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something
Yeah.
like that for them. Okay, sounds
right.
good.
Trustee Duran?
I really like the piece that I read about the janitor that became a teacher. I
Yes.
think we need to really highlight those folks that are now becoming school employees
Yes.
or moving up, because I think that will hopefully encourage others.
Well, and the positive is, so marketing has done an outstanding job, but we've also been spotlighted on Spectrum. Hopefully News 4 will spotlight us, KSAT, anybody else, and we have plenty of people that can tell their story.
I love that.
It's not crisis in the classroom.
Right.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But we want to highlight those folks because that's our poster child. That's
Absolutely.
what we want.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, okay. So this, remember, this one's about the
Police
this is
officers.
straight, but the 20 additional police officer units. This is great. It all relates. It's all within that scope officially. Okay.
Yes.
Now, I was just going to real quick. I was going to say one, and Trustee Field to get a comment. One, thank y'all for the due diligence on this. I know some people are talking about on the budget side of the house, staffing side of the house, training side of the house. But the thing I liked through the discussions I've heard in our prior meetings and the interface we had is we put security first to say, hey, what's going to be best from our knowledge and our history that our law enforcement has taught us, that we can provide the best protection for all of our students. And I think that was the final decision point. And then we sort of look from there on, okay, how do we do that, et cetera, and with other challenges. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
y'all for that.
Yes, sir.
And then Trustee Freeman?
Yeah, just a comment too, and thank you. I appreciate the fact that we're in the position that we're able to go ahead and add these positions to our staff, because legislature gave us a few cents per student extra. Was it 4 cents extra?
18 per student.
Okay, 18 extra. That's total though.
And $15,000
and $15,000 per campus. And we all know that $15,000 is not going to go very far and for the salary of one of our officers. But a question, so I know early on we offered other staff like a finder's fee if they recruited somebody. Would this apply to our police
Yes, it would.
officers as well?
Yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
We've expanded the recruitment incentive to all positions, vacant positions.
That might help.
All right. Is there a motion to come before the board? This one is scheduled for possible action. Trustee Hall?
I move that we approve the additional positions as shared by Mr. Muir.
All right. Is there a second? Trustee?
I second that.
Okay. All right. We got them in there. All right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All right. It's been moved and second that we approve the additional police officer units as presented. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Great. Motion carries.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so next we go into our superintendent area, and then first one is the consideration of endorsements for the Tech Association TASB Board of Directors. Want us to take that? Or?
Yes, sir. So Rolinda Schmidt, I believe, is a trustee in Kerrville, and she's seeking election to this position with the TASB Board of Directors. And so I know that Ms. Freeman is very knowledgeable, and like I say, this is open for discussion, but also your consideration as far as this endorsement for, like I say, Ms. Schmidt.
Yeah, I think, and trustee, can you? We want to also give everybody sort of a little bit of background how we got here and why we could do this. But why don't you go ahead?
So in Region 20, we have 4 directors, 2 directors, myself and a director from Northeast, who, as you all may know, the director that was representing Northeast ISD recently passed away, and so they'll be looking for someone else at a time to replace her on the TASB board. But those 2 positions are because we are large school districts. There's also 2 other positions, and they are by place, so essentially at large, but elected by place. And Rolinda serves in one of those positions. The other position is currently held by Robert Westbrook. Her position her term is currently up. She has no opposition. Many times some trustees from the Region 20 area where there's more than one, they'll ask us to endorse or consider endorsing either one candidate or another. This time there is no opposition for Rolinda, but she would like to seek our endorsement for her support.
Good. And is there, and just to clarify, is there value that if she gets a certain percentage of endorsements that it changes the process, or is it the same no matter what?
It's the same. She is automatic because she does not have any opposition. I will say, but that could happen at some other time. If there was somebody opposing or there was more than one person that had sought that position, it would behoove them to get additional endorsements because it does change the process a little bit. But for this, it does not. And I will mention, too, she's also president-elect of TASB, so she'll serve this coming year as president-elect, and then the following year she'll be president of TASB.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any comments or questions on that? Does the board want to make the endorsement, or if not, is there a motion to come before? Or anybody had any other questions before we do that? Okay.
I would like to move that we endorse Rolinda Schmidt as, I think officially it's Director of Position A in Region 20. Please check that, but I think it's Position A.
Second.
All right. Motion and second for discussion. All right. If not, it's been moved and second that we endorse for the TASB Board of Directors, Rolinda Schmidt. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Okay. Motion carries. Good. All right, and next we have our Board of Member-Affiliated Memberships and Expenditures.
Yes, sir. You're all probably very familiar with the Texas Association of School Boards, or TASB, but this is an opportunity to discuss membership and/or expenditures associated with attending conferences for any other board association or affiliate.
Yeah, and just to add a little bit more to it, it's in past years we've had two that we have at this particular time been approving or moving forward, and really what it involves is approving anybody that wants to go to those meetings, annual meetings or summits that those organizations are having. So we would list those out, and that's the Mexican American School Board Association and the Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members, and that then gives any trustee that wants to attend, their expenses can be covered, and it also shows that Northside's participating with those particular organizations. So that was the major driver. And then if there was others that others may want to talk about, I know we've had contact with at least one other one. We just wanted to offer that up for this segment. Okay, but that's the biggest focus. I know that MASBA is having its conference in about 2 weeks, so I'm definitely. It's about 2 weeks, and it'll be here in San Antonio. The Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members, I think y'all know the president of that also, is having its conference in March and April. So those are the two that we know, but I'll leave it open for that. Now, anything like Dr. Kraft, is TASB related? No, it doesn't come. That's already been approved generically.
What about the national?
Oh, NASB, the same thing. We've been bringing up NASB during this time period too. We haven't done that. That's actually, it's changed sort of through the years, but if anybody wants to do the National School Board Association, this would be the time for us to bring that one up too.
Well, who do we have?
I don't think
Who is our national? We haven't had one, right?
No, we haven't done it.
Texas, I think, dropped out of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes. That's another meeting. Okay.
No, that's
So-
right. I forgot about that one.
So TASB has a license and affinity agreement with both MASBA and the Black Caucus. There is no longer an affinity agreement with National Association of School Boards.
Good point.
So I think this is a great time, and I'd like for us to consider, if we could, I'd like to propose the another national association or membership is NALEO, which is the National Association of Latin Elected Officials. It's a national event, and what I have heard is that they have a lot of good discussions around public education within cities and things like that. So wanted to see if we could consider that as one of those options where a couple of board members would be able to attend one of those events from a national perspective. They're on the current topics and stuff like that. So.
Any other comments, discussion? Trustee Freeman, I'm sorry. You got
No, I just have one. So we are aware of the we know that when the caucus meeting is, the Texas Black Caucus, and we know when MASBA, and that's coming up. So my thought would be to approve, or I would like us to consider approving them. And Gerald, with the one that you have, if you could bring us more information, so we had more information on the organization and when they had, and then we could look at that.
And I'm showing the MASBA conference is the 14th and 15th of September.
Right. Yeah, and I think registration is due like immediately.
It's Tuesday. Maybe Wednesday now. I was living today. Yeah,
So,
I got an hour, 3 hours.
so
I'll need a head count of who's gonna be going.
Well, let's deal with a motion first, and then we'll see where we are.
So I think we have two here. I think we're talking about the annual membership dues, and then I think we're talking about expenses of board members going to these meetings.
Yeah.
And I know in the past that when we've had conferences here in San Antonio, we don't cover hotel expenses. I don't know if we want to discuss that or not, but
So
I guess we could.
you shouldn't what? For these
I don't-
expenses?
For local.
Oh,
For local.
Yeah,
It's in local.
yeah. So, yeah.
I'm making that comment. Okay, so do you want two separate?
No, just do it in one.
Okay, so I move that we approve annual memberships for the Texas Caucus of Black School Board Members as well as the Mexican American School Board Association, and expenses for trustees to attend conferences related to such.
That's good. Is there a second? Okay. Motion second. All right. Any further discussion?
And that includes TASB, right?
Yeah.
That's already.
No, we're already good. Yeah, that doesn't have to be. Yeah, we're already good. That's already covered. Okay? Yeah, then we'll, okay. So,
So now how do we do if I want to propose a new one? Do I make that motion or do we just accept that?
let's do this one first, and
Okay.
we can continue the dialogue.
This one
All right? So we'll do, so it's been moved and second that we approve the membership to the Texas Collective Black School Member, the Mexican American School Board Association, and the attendance at their conferences. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. So let me do this, and Gerald, I'll get to yours next. And then the next question asked by midnight is who wants to attend the MASBA conference? That's the immediate one that we really need to know. I know I definitely do. Is anybody else?
That's local.
Yeah, that's in San Antonio. 14th through the 16th or 15th? Yeah, of September.
Is it set up just like CASB ones where you don't have to stay the entire day? You could
Oh, yeah, you can, that's right.
topics that
Yep.
are aligned to our goals or something.
Well, they have different,
Yep.
different fees depending on, I think there's a 1-day fee and then there's a fee for the whole conference. So,
Yeah.
If we have an opportunity, I mean, y'all can look it up, or I can send it out to y'all tomorrow
That's
and
right.
show you all of the fees. And then will need to let me know what you want to take part in, because everybody's going to register for something different if that's the case.
I think we have through the 25th, it says here.
There's a late registration that we can.
Yeah. They, I did talk to them because, actually, to be honest, I'm dealing quite a bit with MASBA and some different joint ventures that are working to it. And Trustee, I sort of asked that too. I said, well, can we, and they said, yeah. I'd asked that. I said, my schedule is such, and they said, yeah, tell anybody along those lines. And I think you're right on the timeline. But if we can let them know by tomorrow, they said it would be very, very helpful for them. All right, so we'll do that then. Okay, so anybody's interested, put me down for,
I
another
got you
time.
already,
Thank you.
yes.
You're good. You're a good person. But anybody else, make sure. All right? Okay, good. So Gerald, go ahead. So Gerald, the question was, on yours, you could make the motion, or do we want to wait for another meeting when we have more? Because we don't have the details on
Yeah.
what the cost is first, and then where
Right.
their meeting is, and what their associated cost with that is.
Yeah, and I guess I just wanted to make sure I understood that. So I'm happy to bring up further information. Do we need to put it on another agenda
Oh, yeah.
item, as an agenda item in about 2 weeks or something? Is that way, or in the next?
We're off for
meetings
2
or-
weeks now, though, right? Yeah, we got a month, but yeah, we put it.
So
Yeah.
September 26th is send the information, or before September.
Or put it in Freddie letter. Is
Yeah.
it, and how it's associated to, align to school boards?
Well, they deal with a lot of issues, legislative issues, national issues, local issues, dealing with just some general things like that. That's what they do. And I'm happy to send the link. So, but yeah, that way, I mean, I think it would just be, maybe it doesn't have to be the full board, maybe just a couple of board members, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
we'll take a
two.
look. Just propose it. Yeah, take a look.
Okay.
That's all. That's fair. Okay. Any other organizations that we need to take a look at? Okay, great. All right. So that takes us over. Nice transition. As we talk about September, the future agenda items.
So September 26th is our next scheduled board meeting. We will be working on our 4-H adjunct professor agreement. Of course, we'll bring back in a future agenda item to discuss organizations, board-affiliated organizations again, as discussed. We will more than likely bring in a ESSER funding update, a House Bill 3 annual goals update, and again, this is contingent upon our ability to be able to convene our Team of 8 or board retreat on September 12th. What we'd like to do is try to spend about half of that opportunity training with ISO training, which will then lead into, like I say, the development of our early childhood literacy, i.e. third grade mathematics, literature, and our CCMR required goals. And so that will be an agenda item, like I say, on the 26th as well. We'll likely bring in another update with Colonies North Elementary School as a result of meeting with the CBAC committee. And then we'd also like to bring in a review of the 2024 health insurance plans, as well as, like I say, the premiums, and then our medical pharmacy reissuance. And so those are, like I say, the agenda items that we currently have in the works at this point.
Good, okay. And I guess, go ahead, Trustee Harrell, I'm sorry.
Janice, our next, because a lot of those would be at the academics committee, what's the date, the 14th? September 14th?
Maybe, let me take a look, Dr. Harrell.
It was like September 14th at 4. And I'm just advertising it because there were only 2 of us last time. And so it was an action pack. There were a lot of staff involved. And I make that plea because they did work very hard to do a great presentation to 2 people. So this one would be real important because of considerations on
the SRF day.
Yes.
Have the House Bill 3.
Thanks. And then, Bobby, when is our retreat?
Right now, we're looking at September 12th. That'd be the ideal date. Now, again, that's going to be contingent upon everyone's schedule.
Yeah, September 12th. I thought we all agreed.
Yeah,
right?
no, I'm just saying,
Yeah, we're good.
well, life changes, so, you know, whether we agreed or not, maybe things have changed. So the 12th and the time?
It's the evening one.
Okay.
Between 6 o'clock?
We're looking at it
Yeah.
at 6 o'clock. We could potentially look at 5.
Just
if
so
that
the public
works.
knows, it's not a real retreat. It's sitting and working. So there's no bathing suits or margaritas. It's,
Actually, it's,
That week on the 15th is also building committee,
oh,
just to add to your list of
Hey,
activities.
this retreat is probably September 12th. Y'all know what I'm saying? We gotta get to-
12 is the date,
All right,
at 6.
6,
correct?
6
to
o'clock.
9,
I know.
Yes, ma'am.
in theory. All right.
I think it's
Anybody else? Any other future agenda items?
that's good.
The other go ahead, Trustee Freeman. Sorry.
something we need to talk about too, scheduling is perhaps, Janice, I'll look at you, sorry. And so Brenda Ward has done a really good job with training EISO, and some of us still lack that particular credit. So
Yeah, exactly. So what we thought we would do is we would start the I call it ISO, I apologize, acronyms, EISO training. We'd do the first half on the 12th and then pick up the second half because we won't quite have the details that we really need to establish those goals at that point. So we felt like that we could knock out the first half of the training without the updated STAR information and then come back and pick up the second half at a later date.
it'll be really compact.
At the retreat.
Yes, it's going to be pretty
Intense.
compact.
Give us a lot of time for the retreat.
We can hold on ISO or EISO.
We could
That was
see
just
where
a thought.
we could see where we are, and then if we have to schedule,
I've done mine, so.
I know.
I did mine already.
It's good to, I mean, with our data, though.
Well,
That's the
he said
challenge.
he said
I don't
that
think that
the
we're going to
data's
have
gonna
the
be
data.
second half.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, that's going to be the timing challenge
Oh, did she?
with the late release of the scores.
Yeah, ISO. Where'd you do
I
yours at?
did it at, SLI this summer.
Do they have it online?
Yeah.
No, you can't take it online. Not
But it
EISO.
was 3 hours. It was a long.
It's offered at Tasby as a pre-session piece, if that's where you want to go.
It was a pre-conference session.
But there's some of us that are needing that, like, right away.
How do you do that without having your district's data?
Because
First-
they're just
sorry.
at the one I went to, they're just training you in all the pieces of it. You know, they're not giving you your school data. They're just going through the whole thing.
We're fortunate in the sense that Brenda Ward actually is a certified trainer. She felt like that it actually might be more appropriate to break it up and do the first half that is not data specific to, say, Northside ISD. But we can, like I say, depending on the agenda that we set for, like say, the board retreat team of 8 training, we may not have adequate time
We
to
also
allocate the
have
hour and a
athletic
half.
training due at the end of August. The cybersecurity.
I already did that one.
Yeah, everybody did
I
that.
passed.
Should be online.
A plus.
I got a 70.
A question I have is these groups that were members
So
of,
we're
can we
reverse?
get login access?
You got one
so
done,
that
and we all
can
got
do the
one
online
done that you
trainings?
don't.
I did cybersecurity.
Okay, okay, everybody's good.
So we'll review the training requirements at our retreat.
Yeah, we'll take a look. All right. Now, the other one is a reminder. I know Dr. Jordan, the member, needs an NEIC member, so really encourage everybody to get a business, community, and parent. It's October,
So we
right?
meet, well, our first meeting is always in October, so it's the Tuesday in October, but if you have names, just email me. It'd
Okay.
be great. I followed up, Dr. Laurel, got yours.
And I tell you, you must have done a really good job because these people feel just so grateful they're on this
Oh,
committee.
good.
So thank you for being
Good.
kind on the phone and explaining things.
Dr. Jordan, what I forgot is, can you send us the pass? Maybe you did in that one you sent us that had the dates on it, who the current members are?
Yes, that's, y'all approved that tonight.
Oh, we did?
Well, oh, no, I'm
Okay.
sorry, that was Shaq. No, that was Shaq.
Yeah,
That
you
was
did
Shaq.
Shaq.
That
Yeah,
was
yeah,
Shaq.
yeah, okay.
But yes,
The
I can
NEIC?
include that in Friday letter.
That'd be
And
good.
I'll also include in Friday letter again the
Terms.
dates of the 4 meetings of the year.
Okay.
I still have that
Get
one
my
on my
groups.
computer.
Okay,
Oh,
good.
do you?
So we're good.
Okay.
And so I can send you the current
Yeah.
NEIC list.
That way,
then.
get it, yeah. Okay, all right. I think that's it for future agenda items. All right, so the Board of Trustees on August 22, 2023, beginning at, we got needs, 9:15 or 9:20? No, I mean, when we're gonna start. Yeah, when we're gonna convene. You said, all right, 9:17. I don't know what that means. PM will convene and close meeting in accordance with Texas Government Code Sections 551071 and the others as listed. Discussion to take place as listed. So that'll complete this part of it, and we'll probably be back out and open in a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, we'll meet back in Craft's office.
All right, so we've come back in to complete our closed session. We're back in an open session at, was it 9:53? All right, are there any items that come before the board? So one of the items we have is a consideration and approval, adoption of a resolution authorizing approval of a settlement offer involving litigation styled as Dorena Williams and Larry Horn plaintiffs versus Bexar County and Northside Independent School District defendants, pending in the 57th Judicial District Court of Bexar County, Texas. Do I hear a motion?
I move that the following resolution be approved and adopted by this board. Resolved that the district's Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the settlement of the litigation styled as Dorena Williams and Larry Horn, plaintiffs versus Bexar County and Northside Independent School District, defendants currently pending in the 57th Judicial District Court of Bexar County, Texas, on the terms discussed in closed session. And the superintendent and/or his designee is hereby authorized to execute any and all documents and take such actions which he deems necessary or appropriate in his sole discretion to consummate such settlement.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? All right, if not, all those in favor as a motion as presented signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Motion carries. Okay. Are there any other motions that come before the board on the administrative appointments?
I move that we accept the administrative appointments presented to us by Mr. Ray Galindo.
Second.
Oh, let's back up. Can you amend that not to have the? Yeah,
Made by Dr. Kraft.
yeah. Or say it in closed. One of the three. Yeah.
Made in closed session.
All right. Do we have a second? Motion, the second? All right, any further discussion? If not, it's been moved and second that we approve the administrative appointments as discussed in closed session. All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, state nay. Motion carries. All All right, thank you all. We got done before 10. 9:50, and we got exciting tomorrow morning.
We have to adjourn.
Good point. 9:56 p.m. on August 23rd.